Call to order of a regular meeting of the Goodyear City Council, 22 June 2009. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation led by Councilmember Cavalier.
Please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may join me in, remain standing please, and join me in a prayer. Heavenly Father, give us the strength to make the decisions for this community that are in the best interest for us, for our citizens and for our guests, and for the people who work for us. Take care that our men and women overseas who are protecting us and taking care of our safety come home safely, and especially our citizens of Goodyear. Also protect our men and women who are out on the street in fire and police to protect us on a daily basis. We pray for all this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. All of the members of the council are in attendance this evening. We'll now consider ratifying the accounts payable for 2009. Do we have any questions or comments on the accounts payable? Okay, seeing none, could I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Souza and a second from Councilmember Antoniak. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. We'll now move to communication, and we have three items on for communications this evening. One is recognizing Paul Smiley, and I'll do that. And then Jennifer Campbell will present a check to the city from Southwest Ambulance. And then we'll be pleased to have the Encore Elite Youth Dance Team with us and give them an award as well. So let me start with Paul. Paul, I saw you out there somewhere. There he is. Can you hear me? Good, okay. Paul's actually a good friend of mine, and he's also very active in our community. And I'd like to read this letter from me to Paul. Dear Mr. Smiley, it is my pleasure to offer my congratulations on your recent achievement of being honored by the U.S. Small Business Administration as the 2009 Veteran Small Business Champion of the Year for Arizona and Region 9, which also includes California, Hawaii, and Nevada. This significant achievement is well deserving of much honor and recognition. Your commitment to the veterans of our community is impressive and commendable. You have been at the forefront of several veteran business initiatives, including coordinating and sponsoring Arizona's first veteran-owned small business conference in 2008 and spearheading Arizona House Bill 2135, a pending initiative that would set aside a minimum of 3% of Arizona's contracting dollars for veteran-owned businesses. You have also mentored many veteran small business owners, as well as co-founding your own very successful service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, Sonoran Technologies, located in Goodyear. You have demonstrated excellent leadership skills and will continue to make a positive impression on the lives of those you meet. My sincerest congratulations and wishes for continued success. Best regards, Jim Kevin.
Okay, so how about that's
Also a teacher.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much for this this honor. I'm honored and humbled to receive it from you. 2 years ago, my company, we had 4 employees. Now we have over 40 employees. Half of those employees are located at Luke Air Force Base. I really believe in Goodyear, and since I won this award from the SBA, I've had a few telephone calls from California and Hawaii saying, where in the heck is Goodyear, Arizona? So you know what? It's the biggest, it's the best, and the most energized city as you go east on I-10 when you leave Los Angeles. So hopefully people will come and they will stay with us. But I am passionate about what we do here in Goodyear, and oftentimes we hear people from the small business say that small businesses represent about 97% of the employees in the United States. Those small businesses are hurting. So one of my passions is to bring more people to Goodyear, more small businesses to Goodyear, and we fix the economy by putting people back to work. So if I can do that and continue to do that, and all small businesses do that, our city, our state, and our country will be on the right track. So thank you so much, Mayor, for the honor. Members of the council, thank you very much.
Hey, Paul.
Jennifer?
Okay, that'll work. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have some representatives from Southwest Ambulance here to again present the City of Goodyear with a check for $5,000. What we do with this check is we pass it on to our citizens of Goodyear, and we offer half-price swim lessons. To date, we've done 3 sessions so far, and we have over 536 kids registered for swim lessons, and we still have 2 more sessions to go. So I'd like to introduce Martin Nowakowski from Southwest Ambulance, and Mayor, they would like to present you with the check.
On behalf of the men and women of Southwest Ambulance, Mayor, we are very pleased to be able to provide a $5,000 check to supplement your aquatics division in teaching young people of all ages how to swim. And we're very fortunate to be partners with the Goodyear Fire Department, who educate and bring awareness about pool safety to the community. Our intent with teaching kids how to swim is to complement the fire department's efforts on pool awareness. And we encourage the community to remember the ABCs of swimming. That's adult supervision, have barriers, and classes such as free swim classes if available around you. And so on behalf of Southwest Ambulance and our tradition of caring, we present you, Mayor, with a $5,000 check.
Thank you.
Give that to Larry. Yeah, go cash it now.
Yeah.
Just one example of how great you are as neighbors to the City of Goodyear. Southwest Ambulance has helped us in many ways, so thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We have now the Outstanding Citizenship for Service Award. It's a Mayor and Council Award, and it's presented to the Encore Elite Youth Dance Team. They come forward, please. In March 2009, seeing that foreclosed and vacant homes in their Canyon Trails neighborhood were becoming overgrown with weeds and a potential magnet for crime, members of the Encore Elite Youth Dance Team decided to take action. With initiative and sincere desire to serve their community, these young citizens organized to clean up during their spring break vacation. While most of their friends and classmates were relaxing during this time, they cleaned up 6 homes blighted by weeds and debris. These young people took pride in their community by cleaning up homes in desperate need, and by doing so, demonstrated character traits of outstanding citizenship and service. And those people are, I'd like to name, raise your hand so we know who you are, if you would. Being Ahmed Poor, this is the parents, right? Yeah. Shireen Ahmed Poor, Shaheen Ahmed Poor, Jason Galvin, okay, Eric Herrera, Anthony Garcia, Karina Garcia, Selena Abicia, Sierra Navarro, and Gail Garcia. Okay, would you like to say anything?
Let the captain do the talking.
Okay, good.
Well, it was a pleasure to help our community, and we did have fun during that time. It was a lot of hard work, it was really hot, but we played our music and we let people know who we are and what we stand for. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Everybody come around. Okay. We good? Everybody in? All right.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Okay? In here.
No.
Thank you. Well, great. Thank you very much to all those who are deserving of award this evening. We'll now move to citizen comments, opportunity for citizens to address the council on any item which is not on this evening's agenda. I assume that many of the people are here because of the sales tax increase. And we've had a legal decision or opinion that if it's strictly the sales tax, it's not on this evening's agenda. If it relates to the budget, excluding that sales tax, but the overall budget, then you may speak at the time that that item is presented, and I think that's right after consent. We'll do that relatively soon, so you'll hear that soon. But if you wish to address us on the sales tax increase or any non-agenda item, this is the time to do that.
Mayor, I have 10 cards. The first one, I'm not sure if it's Deborah Schneider, and I'm not sure. She checked off call to the public, but she wrote budget on there, so I'm not sure.
I wasn't sure. It's the first time I've done it, so bear with me, I guess.
Is it for the budget or the sales tax?
It's a budget.
All right, do you want to wait till we
Oh, sure.
discuss the budget then? The next card is Ken Going.
Must be doing pretty good. I got called first.
I forgot to mention, try to limit your time to 3 minutes if you would.
Yeah, I guess you know me. Okay. First of all, I'd like to welcome Joe Pizzillo today. Okay, don't count that for the 3 minutes now. I'd like to welcome Joe Pizzillo to the board, this wonderful council. Mr. Mayor, members of the Goodyear Council, unlike in the past, I have appeared here. I will be reading this from a prepared presentation, as you well can see. My name is Ken Going, and I reside at 15944 West Pinchot Avenue in Pebble Creek. And I am a proud resident of the wonderful city run by a wonderful council, in my opinion. Every one of you. I am a proud resident, and I love this place. Both council and citizens performed well in Florida to allow us to be awarded a very prestigious All-American City Award. This council worked very hard to make sure we were privileged to have a major league training site for 2 teams in 2010, not alone to walk about 2009 with the Cleveland Indians. There were bumps in the road as we progressed, such as the bankruptcy situation on the land for the ballpark, but we handled it up to now in a professional manner. I believe also that there is not too many cities in Maricopa County, and I know this for a fact, that have defined cancer hospitals along with other hospitals and pretty much on the verge of bringing schools of higher education, as Goodyear is now doing. I believe it was 2004 that I was asked by you, Mayor Kavanaugh, to be part of another tax committee group to look into how we may lower taxes on property. So we're not always negative to this. I am proud to say the committee worked hard, and we were able to reduce the property tax from $2.10 per hundred to $1.60 per hundred, and I know everyone was delighted the council followed our recommendation. I wouldn't be surprised if that tax doesn't go down even further as we proceed to finish the year out, or the second year out. Now, because of the mishandling by the federal government, the city was set back on its heels somewhat, and those that do not agree with me and the 5 of the 7 council members seem to feel that a 0.5% sales tax is going to damage us severely. Do we forget that for almost 5 years we have been paying less for property taxes, like 50 cents per hundred, just as I noted before? Political and personal agendas of one has to be put aside and look at the situation that it was caused by powers bigger than Goodyear. I am sure each and every one of you and those that are hired to make major decisions will work in unison to turn things around. And perhaps in 3 years, we will treat this as just a memory. I wish to state again clearly, even though it's been approved, that I am in favor of the city of Goodyear increasing the sales tax 0.5% because it is a positive thing for a positive city, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Right.
Since these are not on the agenda, the response by council is limited. That is, we have difficulty speaking out on a non-agenda item because of open meeting laws. But what can be done, so everybody understands as we get underway, we can respond to criticism, and I'd leave that up to, if any individual is criticized, that's their determination to make. We can request that staff investigate and report on the matter, and that's commonly done. And then we can request that the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. We can't do anything other than that. When we get to an agenda item, obviously, we have much greater latitude. Mr. Antoniak.
Yeah, just a procedural thing, Mr. Mayor. Can we ask the clerk maybe to review what the lights are about, given that we've got a lot of new folks that might be coming up for 3 minutes? It always interrupts their cadence of their discussion, and maybe for the sake of their peace of mind, you can tell them what it's about in the beeps.
There is a timer on the lectern, and it will go from green, then there's a warning light, it will turn yellow, and when you have about 30 seconds left, it'll turn red, and it'll start beeping. So when it turns red, you still have time left. When it starts to continually beep, it means your time is up. The next speaker is Lucretia Agostarola.
My name is Lucretia Agostarola. Excuse me. Can I take this off?
What you need?
Lucretia Agostarola. I live in Canyon Trails in Goodyear. Excuse my voice. I have a problem with it for now. And
Fine.
pardon me? It's okay.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, good. To me, it's the way that we come together in the city of Goodyear at the difficult times like this, like at financial difficult times, you know, that makes our city known as the all-American city. I'm sorry, I write cards. And these are difficult times for all cities, and nobody wants to raise taxes. But I support our council members who have made the decision to raise the sales tax. We do not want to lose the things that make Goodyear special. And we don't want to lose any of our fabulous city workers to unemployment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The next speaker is Linda Bamdouini Cushman.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm here this evening to speak about the tax increase. I live at Canyon Trails Unit 3, 1018 South 166 Drive. I've lived here in Goodyear for 3 years. I've enjoyed living here in Goodyear. I moved here from California. I was one of the transplants. And I have to admit that I have found a great community to live in, considering that I didn't know where I was going. So in looking around in our beautiful community, I have noticed that we have a lot of privileges in our community. And I have noticed that our mayor and city council works really hard for us to maintain our privileges, to get our wider freeways, to have our beautiful streets, to have our beautiful amenities that we all have. And I truly believe that you get what you pay for. And if it means that we have to increase our taxes by 0.5%, then that's what we need to do to maintain our community to the standard that we are all used to. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Kim Moser.
Hi, I'm Kim Moser, and I live at 15948 West Westview Drive in the city of Goodyear. And my husband and I bought in the city of Goodyear so we could be close to our children and our grandchildren. And I'm not going to take up much of your time because I've already sent an email to the council explaining the reasons why I support the sales tax increase. Unfortunately, because of the complexity of many, as some might say, the unforeseen economic issues, I feel that an increase is definitely required and much needed to allow the residents of Goodyear to continue to enjoy the amenities that we are already allotted and to feel safe in our neighborhoods the way that we currently do. And with that being said, I definitely do support this increase.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Tim Robinson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Excuse me for reading my statement. Not the best public speaker. My name is Tim Robinson. I reside at 16729 West Sherman Street in the city of Goodyear. I've been observing from a distance the debate regarding the tax increase within the city of Goodyear. And I've come heeding the call of Goodyear resident Joan Shield to speak. Ms. Shield's impassioned pleas at previous council meetings and via the West Valley View have driven me to ensure I left work on time today to come in front of the council and state my support for the tax increase. Ms. Shield has made comments that the city is way off course for the budget to be $13 million short, and that this would never have happened if everyone was reporting to the city manager the way they should be. To me, this view is single-minded and is not taking into account the changes in this country's economy, how rapidly they have come. Does Ms. Shield believe that almost every city manager in America is doing a poor job? As every city, especially in Arizona, is experiencing the same situation as Goodyear. I do not think this is the case and wish to thank the city manager for his efforts. I applaud and support the 5 council members that have stood by the tax increase to ensure service levels are not cut and have questions for the other 2 members of the council. Councilman Cavalier has stated on several occasions, including May 11th and June 4th, he does not want services cut. The belief is that service levels can be maintained without a tax increase. Has any other city in a similar situation been able to do this? Look at Gilbert, look at Phoenix, look at Mesa, and the decisions they've made. The mayor wants the budget cut so tax increase is not necessary. But he was skeptical of changing the loose trash pickup system, although staff studies show it will save money. Is even a minimal savings at this time extremely important? Mayor, I ask why, if you are against the tax increase, are you skeptical of these changes as they provide savings? In addition, the mayor in the past has referred to public safety as the necessary evil, and as recently as April 16, 2009, in a workshop session called Public Safety, the Sacred Cow. I hope I am not the only resident that would prefer putting public safety above loose trash pickup. I chose Goodyear to be close to my family, including my nephews. I have no children of my own, and I am a very limited user of Goodyear services. However, I stand committed to doing my part to provide my nephews and all the residents of Goodyear with a better community, whether it be the times I volunteer to coach, or ensuring I shop in Goodyear to bolster city revenue, or serving on my HOA in an effort to maintain the quality of my community. I'm committed by voice and action. I stand here today in support of my nephews and all the children and residents of Goodyear to ensure they continue to have clean parks, safe communities, and wonderful services. If that means this tax increase is necessary, please accept my support in moving forward. Although I may disagree with some on the council and some residents in Goodyear, I would like to express my appreciation to all for allowing this debate to take place. I especially appreciate each member of the council and the city staff for the time and effort they put into making our city great. Lastly, please accept my sincerest appreciation for allowing me to stand in front of you today in support of the tax increase.
The next card.
Well, I have to ask, should we respond to that? Is that a criticism, or should we respond to that?
Mr. Mayor, you can respond to any personal criticism. I would keep it focused on taxes or nothing that's later on the agenda, such as budget items.
And I certainly would. And Frank, you may wish to also. I don't mention you. Mention two things, Mr. Robinson. One was that I used the word necessary evil for public safety. I need you to show me that one. And in fact, I'd like you to show the public. Because I have said it's a sacred cow, and I think others have. It is. People do not want to cut fire and police, and nor do I. But I don't want it to be above us and not be subject to evaluation and analysis. That's my view on that. And then the other thing about collection, that was a work session. That was not a decision. When I asked the question, are we sure this is going to save us money by changing from the collection of once a week on a specific day? And the answer was not clearly that it would. Later we heard maybe two people will be removed, but I'm concerned about the administrative costs associated with constantly receiving calls and having to schedule unique requirements on a daily basis. So I'm not necessarily opposed to the change, but I did ask questions about it, and I will continue to do that, Mr. Robinson. And whether or not I vote for it, I'll decide that later. Thank you. All right?
Yeah. If I may, Mr. Robinson, to respond to your criticism about my selection of words, I guess, in saying what I said about the tax increase, we can still perform at the level we need to perform with no services being cut without increasing taxes. And that was the stand I took at that time, and that's the stand I take today. I think it can be done. Yes, there will be some cutting, but it won't be in services to our citizens. Our citizens will not suffer any cut in services. This city is well taken care of, and it has been. This is a Cadillac of a city, if you want to put it in car terms. But I sincerely am concerned that some of the things we are doing will come back and bite us in the future. If we're in this same fix next year, are you going to be okay with us raising the taxes another 0.05%? That's my question, because we may not be out of this in a year, and this may come back to bite us again. I'm very concerned of that, and that's the reason I've taken the stand I have on no taxes, and I haven't heard anything that would convince me otherwise. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Lynn?
The next card, my apologies, because I know I'm going to read the last name. It's Ed Youngst. Is that it?
Well.
Good.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Ed Youngst. I live at 2117 North 164th Avenue in Goodyear. And I'm here representing myself as an individual, not my community. I normally am a no-tax person and always have been, but I have come to believe that absolutes, even on the issues of taxes, eventually create rather than solve problems. I would be opposed to this tax if it was aimed at a big increase in spending, but I do not see that being the case. I think that the council and our governor have taken a difficult yet courageous stand and position on the need to increase sales tax revenues to deal with this unusual crisis. Several months ago, I heard an economist, highly educated from the Department of Revenue, speak to a group out at Pebble Creek about the current situation. She had a doctoral degree and a long history of accurate forecasting and predicting. It was her opinion that a sales tax increase was the fastest and the only way to get state and city revenue that they would need. The presentation was backed up with graphs and other references and was quite impressive. At the end, I asked her, how did the previous governor and the legislative leaders respond after hearing your information? Much to my surprise and shock, actually, the answer was they don't want to hear from me, they don't listen to me, they probably don't even look at this information. And I think therein lies the problems. I think our council and this current governor are listening to the experts, listening to the facts, and I support your decision to raise taxes to get us through this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Joan Shield.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Joan Shield. I live at 338 North 161st Street Avenue in Goodyear. At the June 4th meeting, the mayor presented a concise list of all of his alternative options to raising taxes. Several of the council made the following statements: great ideas, but a little too late. I think we've discussed this enough already. I and others believe that we, the taxpayer, deserve to have all options explored before our taxes are increased. I reviewed every video from every budget council meeting starting with May 4th to June 8th. In every meeting, starting with the May 4th meeting, the mayor states his and his council's first responsibility are to the 60,000 people who live in Goodyear. The mayor knows and is friends with 2,540 of them work for the city. He also realizes with our economic structure today, it is not business as usual. Many people in our city are hurting. He finds it difficult task to cut pay and tell people. The mayor does have a plan that includes the following: cutting the costs through layering of upper management levels in the city, police, and fire departments. He supports reviewing the need of new fire stations, wage cuts starting with council and himself, a sliding scale from 3% to 7%, starting at $60,000. The city manager said that a 1% cut would net a 361% dollars in savings. The mayor stated that council needs to ask the city manager to research the 3 different options for eliminating a need for a tax increase and come back to us. No direction was given by council to actually have the city manager do as he was directed by the mayor, nor did he do it on his own. I never heard any acknowledgement or response from the city manager to the mayor's request. What I did hear from the city manager and the council was defending the proposed budget without any questions. I also heard a lot of contradicting of the mayor's points without exploring any of them, especially on the salary and tax comparisons. The taxpayers in Goodyear deserve and request that all options that were brought before council by the mayor be examined in detail. The results should be presented to council and taxpayers. The tax increase and the budget need to be tabled until all options that were presented and examined and numbers looked at before a final decision is made. We voted for each of you to represent us, not to make your best decision. None of you ran on raising taxes. In most cases, tax increases are brought before the people. They are defeated. The majority of taxpayers want Goodyear to be the best city in the state, not the most highly taxed city. In reviewing the videos, I was sort of stern with a couple of you. To that, I apologize. Being on this side of your desk is very frustrating when we are promised a lot from each of you when you were running for councilman. Now that you are here, you appear to be listening to the employees, not the voters. We elected you to represent us. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Richard Kirschbaum.
He doesn't want to speak.
Oh, okay. And the last card is Paul Smiley.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I am not here to talk about the tax increase, but I would like to ask the council to consider this resolution. House Bill 2135, which was devised and presented by Representative Jerry Wires this year, will probably be defeated. This bill simply states that 3% of all the Arizona contracts will be set aside where qualified veteran-owned businesses in the state of Arizona will have first choice to compete. I use the word qualified because that is the way the federal government does its federal contracting. There are 600,000 retired veterans in the state of Arizona, over 300 veteran-owned businesses. The state last year did $800 million in state contracts. The Military Complex Industrial Organization in the state of Arizona contributes $9.2 billion to this economy. There are a couple of representatives down there, I won't mention their names, who thinks this bill is affirmative action. Now, I am a university professor. I teach global business and I teach business law. And I have never seen a veteran bill with veterans of the rainbow of the United States be defined as affirmative action. I understand this from business. There is no global economy without a local economy. We must put people back to work. So I'm asking the city of Goodyear in your session sometime in the future to consider a preference where businesses located in the city of Goodyear and veteran businesses have preference for city contracts in Goodyear. And here's why. On May 1st, I hired 7 people as employees of my company at Luke Air Force Base. 6 of those people live here in Goodyear, which means what? They spend their tax dollars here in Goodyear. When they go out to McDonald's or any other restaurant, that establishment pays the city of Goodyear a sales tax. That is how we rebuild our economy, putting people back to work who have disposable income to spend in our city. In the West Valley Review last week, there was a little small ad. I'm not sure if you saw it or not. It said, buy Avondale. We need people to spend their money here in Goodyear. But in order to do that, they must be employed. So, whether House Bill 2135 passes or not, I think the best way that we can help our citizens revive our city is to put people back to work. And when the city of Goodyear has the opportunity to give a contract or hire a contract, I think businesses located here in Goodyear should have first crack at that contract. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone on council object to that being placed on a future agenda?
No, not at all, but I thought that we already were, not necessarily for veterans, but for Goodyear businesses. I thought, now I know that's another step, but if you could clarify on that.
Specifically regarding this presentation, veterans-owned businesses, 3%. Would you agree to put that on a future agenda?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and one other, given that the legislature is going to might even wrap up before we see each other again, can we get staff to give us briefing on House Bill 2135, who the sponsors are, and while Mr. Smiley doesn't want to roll the bus over the people that are objecting to it, I'd like to know who the legislators are that are potentially stonewalling it.
We sure will, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And then we can all advocate on our own behalf.
Yes. Mr. Souza.
You know, I'm a veteran of World War II, and when we came back, we got our ruptured ducts, and we went to an employer. That ruptured duct gave us first choice of jobs. And I really don't see any difference with what's being presented here, okay, or what is being presented in the legislature, where there's a difference. I think the precedent had been established a long time ago, and all we have to do is build on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further comments from the public on a non-agenda item? Okay, seeing one. Mr. Matlin.
Good evening. My name's Roger Matlin. I live up in Estrella Mountain.
Can you get it closer to your... I'm sure they can't hear you in the back.
Oh, okay. They probably don't want to.
No, they do want to hear you. Go ahead.
I actually wasn't going to speak because I thought the issue of the tax increase wasn't going to be addressed at this meeting. But since it was, and I've heard some comments from various people, I'd like to address a few of these issues. And first of all, you know, I keep hearing the statement about other cities and the nation and its economy. Well, I don't know about everybody else here, but I live in Goodyear. I don't live in another city. I don't live in another state. I live in Goodyear. And I look to you as the council to be responsible when it comes to taxation and the use of those taxes. I don't care what Tempe is doing. It's a significantly larger city than ours, as is Mesa and as is Phoenix. They have different structures, they have different setups, and they're not really plausible comparisons to what's going on here in the city of Goodyear. Part of my problem is that the city, in my opinion, and you've heard this from me before, but you acted irresponsibly when it came to the expansion of the city. You overdeveloped, and as a result, we've gotten into a deeper problem than was originally anticipated. And had you kept a better eye on that, and I'm sure Councilmember Pizzillo, being that he's involved in finance and a professor, he can fully understand what I'm talking about, and looking to the future and looking at development and where the taxes are going to be generated from and what kind of services can be offered in conjunction with those. Additionally, I hear comments, and I saw this in the newspaper the other day, talking about artwork for one of the fire stations. Why are we raising taxes and putting artwork in a fire station? You know, I support the fire department, I support the police department, but I think we need to act responsibly. We don't need to put artwork in their stations, at least not right now, and we need to properly allocate those funds and control the spending in our city. And then finally, our city manager came from a city that is significantly larger, had a budget that, in comparison to the size of Goodyear, was not nearly as large. And the fact that I keep hearing these comparisons and about our city manager's abilities and how he can contribute to the issues we have here in Goodyear, I find kind of ridiculous. He came from a much larger city. He managed a larger city and a larger budget. That is not Goodyear, so we should stop making these comparisons. I'm against additional taxation. I don't know where many of my taxes go right now, And I would like to know that before paying more for services that I'm not sure that I'm even getting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Further comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to consent. I would add, after consent, we'll do the public hearing for the budget for 0910. Okay, so ask the clerk to read the consent items by title only, please.
Item A, approve draft minutes of a special council meeting held on Thursday, June 4th, 2009, and a regular meeting held on June 8th, 2009. Item B, approve a request from Michael J. Basha, representing Basha's, Inc., for a transfer of a Series 9 liquor license, number 09071025, for Basha's number 174, located at 9890 South Estrella Parkway, Goodyear. Item C, approve a request from Samson Plumjet, representing Salatai Restaurant LLC, for a Series 12 liquor license number 120780012 for Salatai Restaurant located at 432 North Litchfield Road, Suite 304. Item D, adopt Resolution 091315, authorizing the city manager to submit the following grant applications to the Gila River Indian Community, a pass-through application from Homeward Bound. Item E, adopt Resolution 09-1316, authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Goodyear and the United States Bureau of Reclamation to conduct a brine management treatment pilot project, and authorizing the city manager to execute all documents related thereto. Item F, adopt Resolution 09-1314, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Avondale relating to transit services and providing for an effective date. Item G, adopt Resolution 09-1319, authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with Maricopa County Human Services Division to increase the funding from $35,000 to $90,000 for special transportation services and providing for an effective date. Item H, approve the request for a special use zoning to allow a church use for the Refinery Christian Church within the planned area development zoning district in the Bullard Goodyear Commerce Center at 540 North Bullard Avenue, subject to stipulations. Item I, approve the acceptance of the transfer of 5 parcels of property currently held in the name of Community Facilities General District Number 1 by special warranty deed to the City of Goodyear. Item J, accept the dedication of easements for a total of 5 drainage basins adjacent to Estrella Parkway, Lower Buckeye Parkway, and Southwood Boulevard. Item K, authorize the city attorney and city manager to finalize negotiations and authorize the city manager to execute a construction manager risk contract with a guaranteed maximum price of $2,200,223 with PCL Construction, Inc., for the construction of Phase 3 of the Ataman Mutual Water Company pipeline and the development of 2 AMWC well sites pursuant to the scope of work, GMP, proposal attached to this COAC. Item L, adopt ordinance number 09-1186, amending certain sections of Chapter 12 and Chapter 14 of the Goodyear City Code pertaining to water and wastewater to enhance the effectiveness and administration of the ordinance, providing severability and designating an effective date. Item N, approve community funding distribution, special event sponsorship requests, and ballpark suites for nonprofits. Item N, adopt ordinance 09-1187, amending resolution 09-1311, the City of Goodyear use tax, section 8A-610E, providing penalties for the violation thereof, providing severability, establishing an effective date, and providing for application of tax to certain contracts. Adopt Resolution 09-1318, declaring as a public record that certain document entitled City of Goodyear Use Tax Amending Resolution 09-1311 of the City of Goodyear Use Tax, Section 8A-610ED, filed with the city clerk and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anyone on the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Would anyone on council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. Letter N, I understand that that is a cleanup of wording, but it is an item that I had voted against, and I will again.
N or M?
N, as in Nancy.
Do you want a presentation?
No.
Both subtitles.
Whatever it consists of, yes.
So you want us to separate N so you can vote on that, is that correct?
Yes, because I voted against these. and
Okay, that's fine. Understand. Okay, then, could I have a motion to approve consent items 7A through M? Mike?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Lord,
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa,
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier,
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo,
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, would you like to discuss N, or do you want us to go to the vote?
Well, as I stated before, that the reason I felt at this time was that it was not a business-friendly tax, and I'm still against it, and so
Okay.
that is all.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I get a question answered on N?
Yes.
Question I have on N is on the use taxes, this cleanup's going through. What happens, or what is the rate for a business who happens to buy something that's $5,001? I think $5,000 is the threshold, isn't it?
No.
No? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, two tiers.
That's the
It is?
two-tier.
Yeah.
It is on the tier.
Yes, it is,
two-tier
Mr.
tax.
Pizzillo.
2 tiers applies to anything.
Yes, it is, Mr. Pizzillo.
Okay.
And if it's $5,001, they pay the 2.5% on the first $5,000, and on the $1, they pay the 1.2%.
Okay, so by adopting this, it actually goes back to 1.2% for anything over $5,000, but it still would be the 2.5 under $5,000. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Thank
That
you.
is correct, Mr. Pizzillo.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Further discussion, comment?
Mr. Mayor, with that, if you'll entertain a motion, I'd move that we approve Ordinance 094205 as read by the clerk. Or, did I read that right? Pardon me. Resolution 091318. Is it?
There's two of them.
No, the
There's
first
an
you have
ordinance
to take
and a
action on the
resolution.
ordinance.
It's it is two
Two
separate.
separate.
Okay.
Separate ordinance.
All right. So the first one's the ordinance that I read, 4205, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we approve 09-4205 as read by the clerk. We have to take two separate motions. Yeah.
Could I,
You need a second.
Wait, no.
No, wait a minute.
I
why can't we do, why can't we just do N?
No, but
Can we just do N as read?
which ordinance is it?
It's ordinance 09-1187.
Yeah,
and
oh,
resolution.
pardon me.
Mr. Antoniak stated 4205.
Sorry,
It needs to
that
be
was-
two votes, but yeah.
Got it.
Your first one will be ordinance 09-1187.
Okay, pardon me. I move the adoption of ordinance 09-1187 as read by the clerk.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sousa.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier.
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Nay.
Councilmember Pizzillo.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lord.
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passes 6-1.
Okay, motion for 091318 resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution 091318 as read by the clerk.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Cavalier.
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Nay.
Councilmember Pizzillo.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lord.
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa.
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passes 6-1.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll now move to business, and we'll have a public hearing to consider adopting the final estimate of the proposed expenditures and property tax levies for fiscal year 2009-2010. I'll open the public hearing and staff presentation by John Fischbach.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I'll try to be briefer this evening since you have the final budget for your consideration. Prior to my beginning, though, and for the benefit of the public, I would like to recognize the Finance Department for receiving both the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting and the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for fiscal year 08 and 09. Both awards are presented by the Government Finance Officers Association. This is the first time that the city has received the award in financial reporting. And at the audit committee this past week, the auditors noted that that is a very significant achievement and congratulated us in doing that. This is the 13th time that the city has received the Distinguished Budget Award. And my congratulations go to Larry Lang, Teresa Sims, and Terry Canada, and the rest of the Finance Department in these achievements. The agenda this evening is first to give some brief background on the budget from 2008-2009. Second, to summarize the final 2009-2010 budget. Third is to hold a public hearing. And fourth is the resolution to adopt the final budget. Just as a refresher for the benefit of the public and the council members, the final budget was based upon a projected deficit of $13.9 million shortfall. That consists of $60,251,343 in revenues and $73,121,169 in expenses, leaving a deficit of $13,934,826. Timing is everything, and I've presented this information previously. Last year, the city pursued some very important initiatives. Unfortunately, they, in addition to the economic downturn, are related to the city's $14 million shortfall. In the Sonoran Valley, the opportunity arose for quality development for the city to control it, the preservation of open space in the Sonoran Valley National Monument, and the assurance of future 303 route through Goodyear. And from the question of the baseball stadium, we had the first window of opportunity of Florida contracts, and the spring training dateline and publicity put us on the map nationwide. And the tremendous successes that we've had with spring training are notably leading up to the Cincinnati Reds joining us next year. This has been a tremendous asset for the park use and revenue events. Second window opened up with the Grapefruit League for the two-team facility, and that's why we will be getting the Cincinnati Reds. It's a narrow window to secure the Sports Tourism Authority funding, and we were successful in doing that. And this built pride in Goodyear residents, and it is a significant achievement. The projects pursued for the good of the city, but then the economy turned south. The Sonoran Valley bankruptcy resulted in costs of approximately $1.6 million to the city of Goodyear. The baseball stadium debt and operations cost approximately $9.2 million in general funds. Other new costs next year cost $1.1 million, and overstaffing due to the development halt are costing $2.1 million. As you can see quickly, without the Sonoran Valley and the ballpark, we would have had only a $5 million gap, which was easily handled, and we have already handled it with staff reductions and internal spending cuts. The other item to notice of the economy is that since January of 2008 through June of 2009, we have had 144 businesses closed in the city of Goodyear, which is tragic, but we've also had 230 businesses open, which is going very well for the retail sales tax that we've been receiving. The total value of budget reductions that we've experienced in the general fund represents $6.8 million in the fiscal year 9 and 10 budget. $22.1 million of that, or 31%, is personnel, and $4.7 million, or 69%, is other expenses. However, we started making cuts in fiscal year 08 and 09, and that was $3 million, $1.2 million of which was personnel, and $1.8 million of which was other expenses. Fiscal year 07 and 08, we had $3.6 million in savings, and that was $0 from personnel and $3.6 in other expenses. Total staff reductions that we've experienced at this point represent 63 positions in all the funds. That's a full 11% of our workforce. Those most recent ones were the layoffs that we did about 2.5 months ago. And in fiscal year 07 and 08, there were 6 positions that were frozen. Those 6 positions were turned around into 6 police officers, and the fiscal year 08 and 09 reductions totaled 57. In addition, it's important to note that we've reduced our director positions by 3. We did this through a reorganization. Water Resources and the Public Works Department were consolidated, and we did not replace that position. And our Community Services Department was consolidated into our Police Department, and that position has not been refilled. And in addition, we are proceeding forward into this next budget year without filling the Director of Engineering Services. The tentative budget before you this evening, or the final budget before you this evening, is made up of $73 million for the operations, and this compares to $87 million in 08, $86 million in 09, and it's now down to $73 million in fiscal year 10. The total budget is $375 million, and that's as compared to $497 million in fiscal year 08 and $405 million in fiscal year 09. This pie chart represents where the revenues come from, and it represents bonds, which is the large yellow area, 48%, and then the large areas are fund balance, 21%, and taxes and surcharges, 20%. This area representing total expenditures, capital and one-time expenses represent 67% of the budget, and then the next largest is the operating, which represents 19% of the budget. The operating expenditures by department, interesting to note here that Public Works and Public Safety, Police and Fire, represent a full 60% of the city's operating budget. So that means any additional cuts or cuts that we have to make have to be made basically out of the 40% of the budget if you represent that the police, the fire, and the public works are critical services. The 5-year capital improvement plan is basically focused on council priorities. It maintains the existing infrastructure. It includes contractual obligations. The new infrastructure needs that are addressed are significant, I believe. It addresses facility needs and public safety needs. Specifically, you have art projects that are down to $198,000 for the public art projects. And the facility projects, we have city center design and construction, city center infrastructure, library design and construction, public works corporate yard, and public safety training facility. That's $52.2 million. Street projects, $2.1 million. Technology projects of $825,000. Water projects representing $6.1 million. Water reclamation projects of $1 million. And wastewater projects of $10.1 million. We presented a 3-step approach to the balanced budget that's before you this evening. We refer to it as the 3 R's: reductions, revenues, and reserves. Reductions resulted in $6.8 million in reductions that we have implemented. Step 2 was the revenue enhancement measures, which the council has approved, providing an additional $4 million. And step 3 was the use of reserves, and we have whittled that down to $3.1 million. Actions to be taken tonight include the public hearing on the proposed expenditures and the property tax levy, and then the final budget adoption resolution. And where do we go from here? July 13th is the property tax levy adoption, and the budget updates to the City Council. We will be providing them to you on a regular, ongoing basis. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, Mr. Mayor, members of the Council. If you have any questions, please address them to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Opportunity for comments from the public.
Mayor, I do have 2 speaker cards.
Okay.
First one is Deborah Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, for your time and consideration. Deborah Schneider, 14762 West Piccadilly Road, in Goodyear. I'm here tonight to comment on adoption of the 2010 budget. A lot of what other people have said kind of overlapped, so please forgive me if, I've spoken the wrong section, but I didn't really specifically addressing tax, so I think it's more budget. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor for his courageous statement made at the last council meeting. I'm a relatively new to Goodyear as a permanent registered voting resident coming from Washington State, and so I found his information on salary and taxes to be informative, and it was new to me. As a retired business and finance analyst for a major global aerospace company, I appreciate facts and data so I can make an informed decision. I would also like to thank those council members who have responded to me by email. I know it takes a lot of time, and I really appreciate it. I was, however, most impressed by the mayor's obvious concern for the residents of Goodyear that he has been elected to represent. In all my years as a career financial analyst, I never witnessed an executive offering to lead by example and take a pay cut or any other kind of compensation reduction for the sake of others. Sacrifice was usually borne by the staff and started with those at the bottom of the pay scale. That was a real morale killer, which resulted in lower production as people worried for their own job safety and security. The mayor, by offering to cut his own salary and the salary of those who can most weather a pay cut, has exhibited true compassion for the residents who are most impacted by the slowing economy, speaks volumes about his character. It must be inserted here that I do not know the mayor at all, and I only know him from watching him here at the council meetings. It has been my experience that when leaders sacrifice as well as those who work for them, the decline in morale is diminished because people recognize a sense of fairness in the process. I know some of you have worried that this would be counterproductive, so have you resisted the mayor's suggestions, at least for this budget year. I appreciate your concerns for your staffs. No one is happy about a reduction in pay, but if done properly with an atmosphere of trust and shared sacrifice, then people at least understand what is happening and will join together to get work done and look forward to better times ahead. Also, having done this kind of budget crunching myself, I do know what it takes for staff to work these budget presentations and appreciate their talent and effort. In closing, I would just like to say that I see that there's still artwork in the budget, and I do feel that it's people that are least able to pay shouldn't be asked to pay for these projects, and I suggest that maybe we have some kind of public and private fundraising and that sort of thing that we could do so that we can have art in the city. I want to say that I am one that does appreciate art, and I do think it does contribute to a city's character. So I'm not against art, it's just that at this budget time. And those of us who maybe can't contribute financially certainly have time and talent, and we've seen that exhibited tonight already with some of our businesses and some folks too volunteering their time. So in summary, I'd just like to commend all of you and your staff for the process, and I know it's, I appreciate your promised diligence to monitor the sales tax revenue. I'd also like you to consider Mayor Kavanaugh's suggestions as you deliberate the final adoption of the budget. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much.
Second speaker card is for Gary Gilzer.
Gary Gilzer, 14971 West Pinchot Avenue. Mayor, members of the council, I'm here to give my continued support to the city manager's proposed budget recommendations to make up the $13+ million shortfall. I realize that you will not try to cut any more services from us, but you will be raising taxes and you will be raising fees. The city manager's proposal attacks the shortfalls using several tools. He's frozen expenditures. In many instances, the proposed budget item is a reduction from the previous year's amounts. He's cut the waste and the mismanagement that all critics of government call for in their incessant cry for smaller government. The city's manager is not something that any of us really like, but it does spread the pain. The employees are getting less, the citizens are getting less, and we all have to pay a little more. He has suggested that we increase fees and revenues. Well, the fees will give us a head start in raising the revenues, since we will now be charging for many of the services that were previously free or subsidized from the general fund. The proposal will take several $million from the city's contingency fund or our rainy day fund. This is the fund we built up over many years to be used in hard times. We are now experiencing hard times, so this is the time to use that part of the fund. I'd like to elaborate on several points that have been made in the past as either budget hearings or in published statements. If we do not pass the proposed budget, we will have a $13+ million shortfall. One of the ways that we can make this shortfall up is to lay off 84 additional people on the city staff. We would have to mothball one fire station. Should it be the one at Pebble Creek Parkway, the most recently opened station? Do you or your neighbors really want to risk death from a cardiac arrest to save the $30 that an average citizen is going to have to pay in additional taxes? We would also have to furlough police officers. Do you want graffiti on your walls? It's our street crime unit and our school resources officers that keep the young people out of trouble. It costs $30 to buy several gallons of paint. If you want lower taxes, be prepared to buy more paint. Finally, we would have to close several parks and have fewer activities. Do you really want to cancel the 4th of July celebration for $30? Another suggestion has been to reduce the salaries of all city employees. Well, we've been doing that in a systematic way over the past year. We've asked them to pay more for health care, we've taken away other benefits, and we've cut all the wasteful items out of the budget that make working a little more fun and easy. I ask you, is good staff morale worth $30 in additional taxes? Lastly, our budget is counting on the construction of the mall next year and the $1.3 million in construction sales tax that it will generate. What do we do if the mall gets postponed? The city manager has proposed salary reductions at that time. I hope it does not happen, but we need the flexibility to allow for this contingency. I hope Goodyear tries to continue to be special. I urge the council to support the budget as presented. While no one likes to raise taxes, have the courage to make the hard decision. We will respect you for it. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on this subject? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And we now will recess. Don't get up. It's minimal time here. Recess the regular meeting and convene a special meeting to determine and adopt estimates of proposed expenditures for the purposes stating in the published proposal. I'm going to call to order a special meeting. All members of council are in attendance. We have one item on our agenda, and that is to consider adopting a resolution for the final budget. I'll start by asking the clerk to read the resolution 09-1317 by title only, please.
Adopt Resolution 09-1317, determining and adopting the final estimates of proposed expenditures by the City of Goodyear for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2009 and ending June 30th, 2010.
Mr. Mayor, if you'd entertain a motion, I'd move that we adopt the resolution of 09-1317 as read by the clerk.
Second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Antoniak and a second from Councilmember Souza. It's open for discussion. If you'd like, why don't we see if anyone has any questions first? Is that fair?
I'll start it then.
Keith, you were
shaking
ready
your
to
head.
go.
I've got a couple too.
Can we go back to your presentation real quick, Mr. Fischbach? Is that? If you could pull up the capital improvement program slide.
Rob, what page you?
I'm trying to thumb through where I was. It was towards the end. I think it was after your graphs.
The 5-year
Slide 13. There you go, right there. You could go to the big screen. Perfect.
The next page.
My questions are maybe specific to some of the facility projects on there. Those are all projects that we have not yet made, pardon my industry lingo here, but go, no-go decisions. We haven't taken an affirmative vote in support of any one of those projects, and those could drop off your budget as we go through the fiscal year and make decisions as to whether or not to proceed with those.
That is correct, Mr. Antoniak.
Okay. Are there any other, are all of those in that list in that category?
The facility projects are all in that category.
Okay.
The public art projects are basically continuation.
Right.
The SR 303 right-of-way is an obligation that we have $2 million each year. Indian School Sayreville to Cotton Lane is budgeted and will be done. The technology projects, the police radio is proceeding, and the CIP software updates will be proceeding. On the water projects, CAP, the Central Arizona Project, M1 charges are obligations that the city already has. Adam and Water Interconnect is just a continuation of the ongoing program. We approved $2.2 million contract this evening. The Gila River Agreement is, we've budgeted that, and you will hear about that in a little later on this agenda. The Central Arizona Groundwater is an ongoing obligation. Water reclamation projects, non-potable distribution is an ongoing commitment that we have. Wastewater projects, $10.1 million. Corrugate regulatory compliance is an ongoing obligation. And the GWRF capacity expansion is something that is necessary. Lift station upgrade is a necessary item. The SCADA improvement or the SCADA project is something that needs to be done. And the Rainbow Valley wastewater reclamation facility is an ongoing project. Does that answer your question?
That answers my question about all of those on that slide. I think it's important for us as we deliberate to recognize that while we approve a budget, at least significantly in the capital improvement program, we're going to have plenty of opportunity to poke holes in your budgets as it's associated with each specific project and whether or not we think those ought to move forward.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Antoniak.
Questions?
Yeah. Is this where I would have the question on the property tax itself? Is this part of it?
Yes.
Okay. The question I have, or it's probably more of a comment, is I've noticed this year specifically is the first year where the assessed valuations are actually being impacted that have gone down. And just for an information, I took a look at my 2008 assessed valuation and I looked at my 2009 assessed valuation, and I live in Palm Valley, and it went down about 26%. So if you hold the rate, which I assume that the proposal is at $1.60, I did some quick calculations that my actual property taxes are going to go down about $220. So just for some information, we've talked about other things, but this is the first year, if you've been in your home for a while, probably your assessed valuation has gone down. Holding the rate the same, your actually taxes will drop.
That is correct, Mr. Pizzillo. In your particular case, I think it's important to note that your taxes are representative of A, property taxes, which are going down roughly $120, and then you're in two CFD districts, and so those taxes are going down the additional. That's what makes up the 220. Everybody in Goodyear will not experience that, but presuming that a house is valued at $300,000, was valued at $300,000, that's gone down. This next year, the taxes will go down probably $120. And then if you're in a CFD, you will experience that other savings.
Okay, I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Any questions?
Actually, Rob asked the question I was going to. Thank you.
Question? Let me ask three quick questions. One is on this booklet, the City of Goodyear budget, annual budget final. It has, for the first time on page 105, it has non-departmental 3.4 million, and we haven't had that before. What does that include?
Did you say page 105, Mayor?
105?
105.
Terry or Terry, can you answer that, please?
Yes, I think I can answer that. That includes the reimbursements that we have put in other departments in the past for development agreements, as well as the revolving fund that we have funded in the past for the stadium and for other projects. Those two are put into a separate category. They were included within other departments in the past.
So it's really reimbursing.
Yes,
development.
a big part
That's
is
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then on the briefing slide on page 6. I just have questions on the Sonoran Valley bankruptcy and the baseball stadium, because I'm just questioning the numbers. Could you explain why the Sonoran Valley issues associated with the bankruptcy will cost us $1.6 million in this coming fiscal year?
The firefighters that were approved for down there came to about, I believe, $1.3 million, and the police contract came to about $800,000, and then there's about $300,000 for the Public Works Department to do road maintenance, and that $1.6 million represents the difference between what we have been able to negotiate and what we're going to be paying. Now, we've also been saving money there because we've been able to transfer all of the firefighters up to this part of the city, and we have assigned those to fill floaters, and that's why there was such a dramatic cut in overtime. So that particular savings is there. On the ballpark, there's $2.5 million next year in operating subsidies for the ballpark facilities, the Reds facilities, and the Cleveland Indians facilities, and the rest of that is made up for debt service.
Baseball, since that's the most recent. I don't remember when we approved the Reds that the debt service was going to be $7 million.
The debt service?
Yeah, you said O&M, I guess that's the difference between revenue and expense, right?
Yes, it's 1.9
your revenue,
this year.
Yeah, your loss or deficit is 2 point something?
2.5 this year.
I understand
or
that.
next Year, yes.
But the carry charges, the interest charges, I don't remember anything like $7 million when we approved the Reds.
Larry, it's $6.8 million, isn't it? Okay. Terry will respond shortly.
Reference a page, can you tell us what numbers?
Yeah, pages 84 and 85 of the budget book show the debt service schedules. At the very bottom of page 84 is the original Public Improvement Corporation bond of $3,274,000. Page 85.
You say that, okay, so it's 3274 is the carrying on the Indians and the...
On the original stadium and the Indian spring training facility, that's correct. The 2008 pick is the Reds facility, which is the next to the bottom. That's approximately $2.1 million. Do you see that? $2,092,000 on page 85.
I see that, yes.
The two in between, it looks like in that number, the two in between B and C of the 2007 picks were actually refinanced. So that $900,000 was a refinancing of other debt that was done at the same time as the Indians facility. That's the $900,000, I think, difference that you're thinking.
I don't see 900,000.
I don't know.
$605,000 and 207 pick B on the top of page 85. And $313,000 on the pick C for 2007. Those total 900 is where I got that.
So it's, okay, I see that. It's 900.
Oh, okay. These
and 2092, which means 3 million.
3 and the 3.3.
And then 3.2 is 6.2.
Yes, but that number.
That doesn't come to 9.2. 6.2 plus 2.5 is still almost $1 million short. Is that for the liner, or what is that for? And the liner's been paid for, is it not?
I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, but basically the operating subsidy is in the budget this next year for $2.5 million, And then in addition, there's $6.7 million that we've been accounting for in debt service.
Right, but there's only 6.3, 6.2.
6.3 is.
Showing up in what Larry's referencing. So we're $500,000 short. Right? That's what you're
I think so, approximately. And I didn't know that when I asked the question. I just didn't understand the numbers.
Larry said that we'll have to provide a written response.
Okay, and then on the Sonoran Valley, you know, I really respect what the city manager and fire and police did to reduce the costs. You did a great job. So what are we paying down there now?
Right now?
Yeah.
Right now, Mr. Mayor, we still have 2 firefighters down there.
Okay, I'm sorry, then what are we going to pay next fiscal year?
Next fiscal year, we will be paying approximately $74,000 for the police contract, and we will be paying approximately $73,000 for the fire contract to the city of Maricopa, plus an additional $50,000 for the relocation of the station. So that's 120-some. So we will be paying roughly $200,000 next year for the actual services down in the Mobile area.
Which, and I know that we expected to pay more, but because of the work you came through, it's much less. That's my problem with the 1.6 and now 2. 1.6 million, and that's part of the 13.9. But yet you're only going to use 200,000 in the Sonoran Valley.
And we've kept the firefighters on the staff, and I don't know the net amount, but we've reduced overtime up in this part of the city with the use of those firefighters. Once we get the additional firefighters moved up here, we will be able to reduce overtime even further. I don't know what the net cost of that will be, however. I can get that information for you.
Yeah, I think that would be good to have.
Yeah, it would be good to have detail.
Yeah, I do too.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think I've always understood it wrapped into that 1.6 at the discussion, that the 200,000 and the delta between the two is what was absorbed. But, all right, okay.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I still have a couple questions. Can I do that now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
May I?
Absolutely.
On that same page, page 6, there were other new costs next year, 1.1 million. And I don't know what those are. They're too vague just to say 1.1 million. Then the overstaffing due to development halt was 2.1 million. I don't understand that. Okay. Would you explain that to me?
Yes, first of all, the 1.1 million other new costs. As you'll recall, one slide that isn't here from previous was the $1.065 million of additional costs. It started out with the $400,000 for legal expenses and then listed the other expenses down. That was what the 1.1 represents. Those were items that were not in the budget currently that need to be in this budget next year, and that's why we had to add the 1.1 million. The 2.1 million overstaffing due to development halt, as we went through the layoffs, we looked very carefully at the development-related services. And I forget the numbers right now, but many of the layoffs occurred in the development service area, such as the fire department had significant reductions in the building inspectors and the fire safety area. And the building department, community development, suffered additional layoffs in the permit techs and those areas. That's what that's referring to.
So that's an additional 2.1 million on the next year's budget, as it reads here.
We kept those people on the staff up until roughly 2 months ago, and so that's what was referring to those numbers as far as what the expenses were. But that is not a part of this next year's budget because we've already laid those people off.
But the title here says key contributing factors to the shortfall of $13.9 million, and I assume that's next year's budget.
Yes, it is, but that's what basically the shortfall was made up of, were just these very large items that we pulled out as a special note.
Yeah, I know.
So you, in other words, you started with the 13.9, and then when you made all the cuts and practically cut it in half, that deficit, that's part of that 2.1 million.
Yes, it is.
Okay. That's how he got to his half, was taking that figure out.
Okay, still doesn't make sense. Okay.
You good? Any other questions?
No.
Okay, so we got our questions asked and answered. Opportunity now to express your view if you'd like or not. It's up to you on the vote, before you vote. Is that all right? We have a motion and a second.
Right.
Yeah,
Motion's
okay.
on the table.
And
Yep.
obviously you don't have to say anything if you don't want. We already have talked on this a few times, or not this specific subject, Rourke, but similar subject.
Well, Mayor, I have to make a statement because I will be voting against this. So I feel I have to give you a reason why, and that is that I don't feel I've had a full explanation on all of this, and too much of this is too vague to me to support. And I think at this point, especially since we're taking so much out of our contingency fund, almost $4 million, but it's 3 something. To me, that is an emergency fund, and I don't think this is an emergency. This is a need, and I think that to call it an emergency is wrong. If you want to know what a real emergency is, turn on your TV and watch the news. Now you'll see some emergencies. But, it might be that we're in a situation where we need those funds, and who knows for what. And I don't want to say for what, but if this continues and we need to pull from that fund again next year, as the same thing is happening with our taxes, it would be frightful. And I do not want to see that happen to this city. I feel that there is still more cutting could be done. 2 top-line directors will not be on our payroll next year, and just their salaries alone is $320,000, and that doesn't even count all the benefits. So there's more cutting that could be done in there without cutting services. And as I said, there's too much that is not clear to me for me to support the budget, and so I'll be voting against it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Comments?
Is it proper just to thank the citizens at this time before I have to vote? No.
Say whatever you'd like.
Okay. I just want to take the time to thank the citizens. Those of you who have been pro and con that have come before us. It's not easy to stand before that podium and state your cause, and I really appreciate it. And I know this year's budget has been really contentious due to the severity of the economy. I understand that the financial difficulties and the sacrifices many of our Goodyear families are going to make. And I've tried to do my best, and I think the council has, to make a nonpartisan decision. I don't have the ability to do anything but that. And so I must look at the city in total. I think this is the right direction for economic recovery. And finally, I'd like to thank the city manager and the staff for all your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was very nicely stated. And I apologize that I haven't really said much this evening. I guess I've said so much in the last month that I feel like I'm a broken record. My children would say, well, what's a record? But we won't even go into that. And myself, I'm thankful for all the emails and the people that have come out to speak for and against. You know, it's funny because this is the biggest audience that we tend to see when there's some issues going on, and so it's kind of nice that way because we get to hear from people, and I'm just thankful for that. And you know, this is the American way. We do have different opinions, and thank goodness we're here that we can hash it out.
Thank you. Mr. President.
There's not too much more I can add to those comments. Again, thank all the citizens who come out. Again, I believe I'm a newbie. This is actually my first council meeting, so from my perspective, There is a lot of people out there, but a couple things I'd just like to add. First of all, as a former budget manager, I know what kind of work went into this, and I know it was very difficult, especially in today's trying times, and a little tip of the hat for the work that was put in. I'm sure there was a lot. Second thing is one of my concerns, even, when I was running for the office, is I know the reserves have to be used to balance, but with all being equal, we still have a shortfall in next year's budget of $3.1 million by using it. The only thing I ask is if, city keep looking for efficiencies and ways to try to streamline services to try to cut, or at least shorten that $3.1 million so that we're a little closer to balance when we start next year. Example, technology. I had the opportunity to see the police CompStamp program, how they're using technology to better utilize resources and working where they have and try to cut down some of the costs. So I would just make a suggestion to try to see if we can close that a little bit more, because I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not convinced that the money you're going to get from the mall is going to happen this year as well. So that's more cuts down the road. So with that, tip of the hat, I know a lot of hard work went into that. Good job.
Councilmember Antoniak.
I echo my compliments to the staff and to the citizens who came out this evening and the many other evenings and communications that we've had back and forth. As we approach next year, I would like to be, obviously I'm going to be in support of this budget for the reasons that I've stated on the record before in terms of maintaining our public safety services, maintaining things like school resource officers and other items that Mr. Gelser's eloquently depicted in his discussion this evening when he was presenting to us. But as we approach next year, I'd like to be even 30 days, 45 days out ahead of this if we can. I know we have statutory requirements that you all are always racing to the deadline in the budget office and the revenue office and the manager's office to present these to us. But I've said it year in, year out, prior to your arrival, Mr. Fischbach, and to echo Mr. Cavalier's comments this evening in terms of being somewhat vague on this stuff. We get a budget book a week in advance of this meeting, and it's 125 pages, and you go through and you try to get as much out of it as you possibly can. But sometimes you can't nitpick it, and I have a feeling next year we're going to be nitpicking even more than we did this year. So anything we can do next year to be far out in advance of this for citizen time to review our budget and review our revenues, as well as for us to predict that. And I'll state it again. I stated it before that if we're in the same condition we're in this year, come next year, we're going to have a lot. We're going to have even a healthier discussion than we did this year in terms of streamlining. And those 84 folks, or tens or 20s of folks, we're going to have that hard discussion next year. So, but I'll be supporting the budget.
Mr. Souza?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we've seen here the past month and a half as we go through this process is really democracy in action. And I take you, to recent events that are occurring on TV coming out of Iran. We're not burning tires. We're not killing one another in this process. We're Americans, and we're doing what Americans do, and that's hear one another out and make decisions. And that's basically what this council has done over the past month and a half. I appreciate the comments that were made this evening and the comments that were made in the past. I'm still convinced that if we don't adopt this budget at this time, in 2011, 2012, we're going to be looking at a volcano. And I hate like the devil to see that happen. And that's one of the reasons I've been convinced ever since the staff and the city manager has put their proposal to the council to back it, because they're the professionals. I am not a professional when it comes to budget process. I have a very difficult time in budgeting my own home, and that's the reason my wife does it. So I'm going to be voting against, for this budget, and for reasons that I've stated in the past. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, and I too would echo the thanks to all the citizens who, with emails and meetings, and had the courage to speak in front of us, and those who don't want to speak in front of us but still have strong feelings about this subject. Thank you very much. I've spoken out on the subject quite a bit over the last couple of months, and it tend to get a little personal on occasion. I don't want that to continue. I do want to just end by saying the things that really bother me. It's not about the process, that's over with. It's by raising the cost of government even a little bit, we're harming those that we need to help the most. And I understood the cost of the retail sales tax, $195 a year. It's half a cent on any one purchase. $195 is a car payment for many of our people, and they aren't making their car payments. So it's, to me, I don't like that end of it. And from the standpoint of the financial structure of the city, if you've listened to me, you hear me say, I want to be a great city by 2025. And the only reason you get there, the only way you get there is through a strong financial position. Assessed values are down, mine are down 20%. They're going to go down another 20. With the 6 and 20% limitations, I'm not sure we're going to be able to bond a lot around here for the next couple of years. Taxes, real property taxes are also a lagging revenue source. So I'm concerned over the next several years, do the economy, assessed values, whether we can capitalize on opportunities that will be placed in front of us. Arizona State University, the mall, good businesses that have fine jobs. They want our help, and historically we've done that, and I'm not confident we can keep doing that. To be able to do that, you have to consider taxes as your last option, in my opinion. I'm not convinced we're there, and that's why I'm voting against this. But what we need to do now, right now, in my mind, is cut costs. And as we weather the future hardships, maybe we need to raise taxes in the future or find some other revenue source. But I'm just not ready for it yet. But it's a losing cause, obviously. And I respect those who believe otherwise. So could I have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Antoniak?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Nay.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Nay.
Passes 5-2.
Okay, let me adjourn the special meeting. Okay, and I'll reconvene the regular meeting. Would anyone like to take a break?
Yeah, let's take 5 to 10.
How about on the hour? On that clock?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
Which
thanks.
clock, that one there?
We'll reconvene on the hour.
This is a request filed by the City of Goodyear for a final PAD zoning application to rezone 100 acres of city-owned property, which is located, as you can see, at the northwest corner of Estrella Parkway and Goodyear Boulevard Northwest. The proposed rezone would provide 60 acres for university campus development and a site for a future 30-acre community park. And as you can see on this aerial photo exhibit, the existing development surrounding the subject property, we have Wildflower Ranch residential subdivision and also some agricultural land to the north. Continuing around to the east, you have Estrella Parkway. There's the Fairfield residential apartments. There's also a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints building. To the south, we have the Northwest District of the Goodyear City Center, also Desert Edge High School. And then to the west, again, Wildflower Ranch residential subdivision. I wanted to to go over a few of the key exhibits in your PAD booklet quickly. The final PAD establishes the permitted uses and the guidelines by which the PAD will develop. And as I mentioned, the concept is to provide for university campus development and a community park. Staff made sure that the PAD would accommodate the development of one or more university campuses without naming any specific institution or institutions. And as you can see here, it's a pretty simple development plan. The orange and dark orange areas show where development should occur. The light green area shows where the park will be. There are also 2 greenway zones shown in kind of a dark green. There's these 50-foot wide corridors, and those are designed to be accessed for pedestrians and for bicyclists so that they can easily access the library and the community park and also the city center. I'm going to move now to the circulation exhibit, which is figure 6. As you can see here, there are 2 access points on Estrella Parkway. However, they will be restricted to right in, right out. These 2 areas here. The yellow arrows are potential driveway locations. The 2 blue arrows that you see are the main access points into the university campus areas. And again, we need to note that the park has not been programmed at this point. And so the access points that are shown going into that park are just conceptual at this time. Moving on to the building heights that we are recommending for this PAD. As you can see, there is a view corridor that's being carried over from the city center specific area plan in an effort to ask for a lower building height to preserve the mountain views. You'll also note that we have lower building heights adjacent to the residential areas. And we have a minimum building height along the frontage of Estrella Parkway. And the objective was to create a more urban look along Estrella Parkway and to continue the feel of the city center in that area. And I wanted to also note there is one stipulation that we have placed in the ordinance. Because we don't have detailed architecture, we don't have a formal site plan for any university at this point, staff is proposing that we have a stipulation which would require the site plan for the first phase of development, which would include architecture and building elevations, that would be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission and the City Council. And subsequent site plans can be reviewed and approved by staff if they follow the architecture that's been provided with the first phase of development. So the City Council will get to see the building architecture and the first phase of site plan development. I'm going to move back to figure 6 just for a minute. We had a citizen review meeting on May 12th, and we had 9 individuals attend the meeting, including council members Georgia Lord and Joanne Osborne. Although there was no opposition expressed at the meeting, we did receive some correspondence from a local resident who did provide some good feedback that we wanted to make you aware of. And the first was the location of driveways and parking areas associated with the community park. We've heard from the existing residents of Wildflower that they want to make sure that they're not negatively impacted when we do design and program the park. We need to be careful of where we put the driveways and where we put the parking areas. And also, there were some concerns about the driving speeds along Harrison Street. As you can see, Harrison Street has a relatively long stretch in this area. And so when Harrison Street is designed, staff will need to work with the engineering department on the appropriate configuration of Harrison Street. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this item at their meeting on May 20th, and there was no one present to speak on this matter except for a resident of Franklin Pierce University. And the Planning Commission recommended approval of this PAD by a unanimous vote. And this concludes the presentation by staff. Staff is available to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Opportunity for comments from the public. Ask the clerk to read ordinance by title only, please.
Adopt Ordinance 09-1183, providing for the conditional rezoning of approximately 100 acres from agriculture urban district to final planned area development district to facilitate the development of the University Park development, adopting supplementary zoning map number 08-012 to provide for the change of zoning, providing for separability, and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, can I just, before I speak on the motion, just clarify? I meant to clarify before staff's presentation. I didn't want to unduly interrupt. Mr. Massey, I have a question for you. I understand that this was prepared by, but I assume the direction you've given me in the past as it relates to the city center and Reading and HDR applies to this, and that there's no financial impact to HDR as a relation to this vote.
That is correct.
Okay. With that, I'm going to entertain a motion.
Okay.
I'll move that City Council adopt ordinance number 09-1183 as read by the clerk.
Second.
A motion from Councilmember Antoniak and a second from Vice Mayor Lord. It's open for discussion.
Just thank you for your, I'll let Vice Mayor Lord speak first.
Vice Mayor.
There was one concern I had. I did not know we were going to allow drive-in restaurants on the civic quadrant, and I see you have that in there. I'm on page 203, so, yeah. 203 says restaurants, freestanding restaurants, including those with drive-through windows. And I thought we had discussed that on the quadrant, that we had enough drive-in restaurants in the area. And to me, college students can walk to the restaurant. I'm on page 203.
Page 4 of 9 of your COAC.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's page 4 of 9. I'm looking down. You have 3 numbers there. Page 4 of 9. It's the third point down where it says restaurants. Page 4 of 9 of your presentation. COAC, not in the book.
Mayor, comment on members of the council. If you'd just bear with me for 1 minute, I just need to verify the text of the PAD.
Georgia, on page 9 of this book,
You want me to go to the book now?
there's it says freestanding restaurants, including those with drive-through windows oriented to generate business
That's
for
exactly
users.
what's in this one. That's one I'm...
It says, and staff are prohibited.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Stand to be corrected. Okay, my next one then. Sorry to do that to you. Here you are hustling to try to get that information for me. The other thing I want to make sure is that when Incarnate Word was involved, they talked about wanting to fence in their university. And although I see that the decorator walls are allowed, it doesn't really designate that in this, that we do not want that. So do we need to put that in?
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, staff did provide provisions or design guidelines for the walls. Staff preferred to have lower garden walls with a lower height.
Are we going to prefer, or are we going to say that's what it is? I think that, you know, this is our civic quadrant, and we know how we want it to look, and we know we want easy access and movement from the civic part to the universities, and we want them integrated. And I don't think walling in university is going to achieve that. So I would like us to consider that change.
What was the reference page? What was the page again?
What page is that?
On the wall one, let me see. I didn't do so well on the other one, so I'm not sure, guys.
It's okay. I know how you
think it's
feel.
on page 28 of the book.
Of the book?
Mm-hmm.
That's parking. Oh, it's 29.
No,
Building zone.
building.
Page 24, let me look at page 24. Well, I'm not sure where I read it, but it was in there.
Fences shall be prohibited in greenway zone.
Yeah.
Garden walls maximum 24
Yeah,
inches.
but I'm just saying, I'm just put.
You want it to be open
I want it
campuses. It's
open
completely
campus,
open.
and I think somewhere
think
we
that's
need
the way
to,
that-
we need to be specific about it instead of just general.
I think
Well,
it goes
open
without saying.
campus is.
Open campus.
campus, yeah.
But it was open
'Cause we
campus
want-
when they
Visual.
came in, and they still want to do, and I just want to assure that, you know, if we tell them what we want ahead of time, then we don't have to deal with it later.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council, we can add specific language that we do require the campuses to be open to the public and that they will not be closed off if that's how you'd like
Of course, I need to ask
proceed.
the rest of the council if they're for this. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So does everybody else in the council feel this is important?
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
I understand that. I guess my only one concern, and not that it's not a good idea, but since we're already in contractual agreement with Franklin Pierce, where does that lie?
I don't think they requested it. It was Incarnate Word that was adamant on it.
I don't think Franklin Pierce cares.
They don't
No.
care.
No,
Okay,
I
that
think
would be
Franklin
the
Pierce
only.
would rather have it being open.
I guess I wouldn't, I mean,
Mr.
I
Mayor, members
think
of the
that-
council, if I can weigh in, I think you can talk about your structural elements, i.e. the walls, but I don't think you can really go into how they're going to use the property, because they have leased the property. So they do have some control.
Over walls?
No, on the use of the property, as far as making it open and available to the public, that's one thing.
Oh,
That's a use of the property.
Yeah, I don't
but-
mean it to that. I guess our meaning is,
But if we're going to
it's a little
structurally, I
different
think
than
we can
that. The
address that
structure
through.
of a high wall,
Yeah,
I
through
would
site
prefer not
plans or
having.
design guidelines, I think.
Then the other
probably.
question I have, and this is just from information, it says, all sewer design, master sewer report will be completed at a future date. And we've had conversations with the other developer of the other quadrant, Sun MP, and I think they're concerned of not getting that early enough on for their planning. So I'm just suggesting that we make sure that we're bringing them into the fold and letting them know when that we're going to be designing this, okay? That's it, thank you.
can we go back to the wall discussion for a second? Are we prohibiting, if a campus wants to, I guess that, how am I going to say this? The spirit of an open campus, I think, is there. But if one of the universities wants to put a perimeter wall around, a perimeter wall with specific access points, are we prohibiting that?
You want a 6-foot wall around the university?
Not
I
necessarily,
think that's
but
what
I
we have
think.
to determine.
Yeah, I guess for me, if there's a special use that comes in, which sometimes you have on a university campus that requires a little bit more enhanced security, I don't want to
Well, then,
discount that
then I would think they would
discussion.
come, that would be something they could come before us, because that would be sort of a special permit for that, right? To do that.
Perhaps a biochem facility or something of
Yeah,
that nature that may need a specific access point. I don't want to prohibit us from having that discussion in the future through these.
Yeah, and I'm not
guidelines.
against that. I just don't want to drive down that wall, down that
No, I don't want to
driveway
see
and
I don't
have
want to
this
see a
wall
6-foot or
university
8-foot brick
behind it.
wall
Yeah,
in front of the campus.
yeah,
But if there's a wrought iron steel or wrought iron,
yeah.
fence that may be needed and a specific access point, I could see us having that discussion.
So we'll let staff learn how
Yeah,
to word that.
they can figure out how to, I mean, you can, again, not closed, but a funneling point where people are walking through and everybody that enters and comes and goes through a single point or 4 points or whatever. I could see that being a discussion with a university.
For making you look at that one.
Okay, further? I just have one thing I'd like to just, for discussion, and we lease 30 acres to Franklin Pierce, and we lease 30 acres to URW. URW will not be using their 30 acres. And fortunately, that's the acreage next to us on the south part of the 60. And so Franklin Pierce now is working with other colleges, and they're actually thinking about changing their 30-acre agreement to incorporate this cluster or whatever, it's probably a good time for us to tell Langford or somebody that 30 acres is open now. That's back. That's our 30 acres again. And it might be what, if we would go to Langford and say, if you knew you had several more acres, I don't mean 30, but would you have done something differently in the 40-acre parcel? Maybe the library, maybe the performing arts, maybe they were restricted by that 40 acres, that knowing that it's back in our lap, that part of that could be used, not just for us, but for the college's benefit also, by putting it in the city center civic park. I'm not saying we should do it, but I think we should consider it as an option. That don't just give that 30 acres back, let's see how we can best use it for both.
I don't disagree. I think there's a healthy discussion to take place.
Mr. Mayor, I just need to point out that FPU, Franklin Pierce University, has a right of first proposal to deal with that second 30 acres, and we've initiated discussions with Richard about that. But certainly your idea, I think, is beneficial. So.
I think the mayor's point, if I can expand on it,
sure.
I think that first of right proposal is just that. It's first of right proposal. That's not right to encumber 60 acres. That's a healthy discussion that has to come back to this. We haven't had a discussion. ASU's been mentioned in this game. Other universities have been mentioned in this game. The hybrid. The game has changed.
That's the point.
And so that discussion has to come back to us at some point in the future.
That's correct, yes.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council, that should be a future agenda item.
Okay.
It's not on.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I've heard many other universities discussed in a hybrid discussion, and I think the mayor and I are on the same page here. I'm not.
Well, my concern here is I don't know right now what we have in mind for these other universities that we're talking about. Where are we going to put them?
Some are talking about co-location. Some are talking about partnerships. Some are talking about, some institutions are known for coming to local municipalities and asking them to bond their own capacity. And so that's a discussion that isn't necessarily.
In this.
Yeah, this is not for tonight's discussion.
But if we pass this, does this prohibit us from having that discussion?
This is strictly zoning.
We can come back.
Yeah.
We can come back and
And
rezone
this
on
zoning would be satisfactory for
Okay.
any part of that
Yes.
140 acres.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. With the caveat, though, that if you're considering having Langford programming this 30 acres for some non-university use.
I'm not.
Okay.
All I'm saying is, how can we best use this 30 acres for all concerned? And so it needs to be an integrated thought process. And Langford is the one I think we go to first and say, if you knew you had 3 or 4 more acres, would you have done this differently? Something, that's what I'm getting at. In other words, it gives us an opportunity to optimize the situation.
Sure. I agree with you. We might as well do it now.
That's all I'm thinking about. I just don't want us to walk away from something that we should capitalize on. Okay? Okay, good job, I think. Do I need a, yeah, we do.
Roll call.
Roll call vote?
Roll call. Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzolo?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Hey, thank you. Next, we move to a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance to amend the Palm Valley Phase 8 Planned Area Development. Open the public hearing, and Steve Kretschuk. Can I interrupt and just say, if you want to take off your jacket, do it? It's hot in
No,
here.
thank you.
It's cold over here.
It was freezing over here.
I'm just going to join
We
Joe.
got the air coming down on us.
I see, Joe, you're already set up.
Eventually, I knew you would come my way.
I know. I'm trying.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. This is a request for Track D of Palm Valley Phase 8. Track D is located on the north side of McDowell Road, basically about halfway in between Pebble Creek Parkway and Saraville. Uses surrounding Track D, you have existing residential lots here, the Suncor homes, undeveloped commercial piece here, and undeveloped properties here to the south. This is a request to change the land use for Track D from medium density to high density residential, an increase of building height from 30 to 40 feet, and to change the building setbacks from the north and east property lines from 75 feet to 50 feet. This was the conceptual site plan provided with the PAD amendment. And what this basically shows is on the 7.5 acres, what we're looking at is about 136 units, which developed at 18 dwelling units per acre, which is the cap as stipulated with this PAD amendment. We have a landscape buffer here along the north and along the east. Here it's 50 feet, here it's 30 feet. The numbers on the building correspond to the proposed number of stories. So what we're looking at is 2-story buildings here, 1-story buildings or elements here on the ends, and 3-story buildings in the center of the complex.
Say that again. You're looking at on the east or the east side of the property again, 2-story?
Yes, sir.
And what's the height?
Well, the height would be, let's see.
Sorry, do you mind me asking questions during the presentation?
Well, by stipulation, we have 30 feet for these buildings. We can increase the height to 40 feet once we go past a 100-foot mark from these property lines. So that's why these higher buildings are clustered inside the interior. So it's 30 feet along the boundaries.
Okay.
There was a neighborhood meeting held on May 12th of this year.
Talking to the mic a little more. It's hard to hear you.
Okay. May 12th, we had a citizen review meeting. We had several resident stakeholders in attendance. 2 were opposed to the PAD amendment. A Planning Zoning Commission meeting was held on May 20th. Again, there was several stakeholders in attendance. 2 speakers again were opposed. The Planning Commission did take action to recommend approval of this request, and staff is also recommending approval. We do find it consistent with the general plan and compatible with the surrounding area as with the stipulations that we are proposing. As such, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending approval, and that concludes my portion of this presentation.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Mitch Rosen. I work for Suncor Development Company. Tonight I want to speak to you about why Suncor is requesting an increase in density on this property, which requires a zone change. In addition to that, I want to talk a little bit about why we are requesting modification with regard to the height and the setback. First, I think it's important to put this property in context. This property currently has a zoning designation that allows up to 12 units per acre. What we are asking for is an increase from 12 units to 18 units per acre. With regard to context, McDowell Road is designated on the general plan as a high-intensity mixed-use corridor. So this road is high-intensity mixed-use corridor, and the general plan encourages in that corridor high-density development, including in excess of 20 units per acre for high-density residential. In addition, while this area has been built out as commercial and this area has been built out as some commercial, as well as the regional mall that's coming, it's anticipated that this area along the freeway will also be some more or additional commercial development. To put this into context, we just came through one of the best real estate development cycles, certainly in my lifetime. There was a developer that had this property in escrow. They had another one of our properties in escrow as well, just north of Pebble Creek and Indian School. I'm sorry, just north of Indian School and Pebble Creek. That project did proceed, the one at Pebble Creek and Indian School, and is now being sold out as townhome type development. But many investors have bought those homes, and they are leasing those homes out, which is not what we'd like to see happen in this kind of environment. The reason that we're asking for an increase in density from roughly 85 units to about 125 units, which will result in a very nice, small multifamily apartment complex, is because in order to make these projects economically viable, you have to have certain fixed assets within the properties to make them of good quality. For example, you have to have a nice pool area, a nice community center, nice entry gates. And candidly, at 12 units an acre, the multifamily apartment development community has provided feedback to Suncor that it doesn't work. And so as we've looked at our inventory of property in Palm Valley and tried to ready property for the turnaround that we will experience in this community, this is one of those that we looked at and we believe needs to be adjusted to meet market conditions as we move out of this slowdown and into one that would be very readily developable as the market turns. With regard to our request for a modification to the setback, the modification is well seen here, in which the staff has conditioned us to have this area at 50 feet fully landscaped through here, and then only two-story units here. These units would be similar in height to a two-story single-family residential unit that might be found within our Suncor development project here, which we own all of this property as well. I'm going to show you what it would look like if we weren't allowed to have the modification in the setback, just to give you a sense of what we went through as we considered asking the question. If you go with the conventional setback, what you'll find is that there'll be a 30-foot setback for landscape here, and then what will typically happen will be that the developer will put parking here. And we found that the project worked better if instead we took the parking and moved it away from the residential and had the two-story product up against the residential rather than parking up against the residential. So this is stipulation that would require it to be 50 feet, would require it to be fully landscaped. And then also, just to give you a sense of scale, these units, two-story units, a footprint, you can see the size of a single-family residential unit here. And if a single-family residential unit were put here, the setback for rear yard is 25 feet. So this is a two-story unit with a conditioned setback of 50 feet and the landscape as well. Lastly, I just want to give you a sense of the type of development that we would anticipate here. This is a project on Litchfield Road, just south of Bell, up in Surprise. It was developed by Vivo Partners. Vivo Partners is in escrow to purchase this property as well, would like to be able to do that, but the condition to be able to do that would be we need to increase the density. So that's big picture why I'm here requesting that this property be considered for an upzoning by roughly 40 units. It will be a nice, small apartment project within your community, and I believe it will be a complement to what exists there and continue to be part of the whole community of development that we've done in Palm Valley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I do have one speaker card for this item.
Okay, it's up to you now for the public to speak.
John Myers.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, my name is John Myers, I live at 15777 West Berkeley, and that is within the affected area. First thing that I'd like to say is it's a Cadillac, it's special, and we have enough of those. Those are all comments made from either this council or a gentleman that's on the Planning and Zoning Committee. So having said that, remember that Goodyear is a Cadillac, that it's something special, and we have enough of those. You'll hear later that we have a lot of those, and that's empty apartments. Just remember that, and you'll hear more about that later from a citizen who is much more well-versed in occupancy rates within the city. I'd like to discuss just a couple of things, and first and foremost is, does everybody understand what a conceptual drawing is? I know what a concept is. It doesn't mean that that's what it's going to look like. It means that's what somebody thought up and thought, great, we can make it look like that maybe. If somebody is in escrow to purchase this property, I would be less apt to be here discussing these issues if I knew what they really wanted to put on that piece of dirt. Setbacks, moving those setbacks, that means they're moving them closer to homes or potential homes. That means that a two-story apartment complex is going to look into the backyard of somebody's home. Now, that's a homeowner, not a transient person who's going to live in an apartment for a short period of time, but a homeowner within the city of Goodyear. That's not taken into account here. We're going to move those setbacks back, and if they're going to live so far off of the front of the house, they're going to have a pool in the backyard. They're going to be comfortable in their pool or backyard. In the middle of this conceptual drawing, we talked about 40-foot buildings. What's north of those 40-foot buildings are single-family homes right now with pools in the backyard. So of the setbacks and of the change in height, I just see at no point at this time why those things should be changed. If a new person comes in to purchase those properties and they wanted to actually bring in what that property would look like, then I think that would be the time to start reconsidering changing setbacks, the amount of units available for a property, and heights. Suncor wants to change those things now so that they can sell their property. They're not concerned about what it's going to do. They're concerned about selling that property. That's all they're here to look for. That's what they've said. The conceptual drawings are a concept. It doesn't mean anything. I can draw a little man on a piece of paper and tell you that it's the next greatest actor, but it doesn't mean anything. Okay? I just ask again that you take that into consideration. A conceptual drawing means nothing. The affected residents of the city, residents, not transients, and we have enough of those. It's a Cadillac, and let's keep it special. We're not an apartment community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have one more. Jason O'Clair.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Jason O'Clair. I live at 4651 East Calle Redonda, Phoenix, Arizona. I'm with Vivo Partners. We are actually an escrow on that site. And one of the touch base with the gentleman before me that spoke about apartments and kind of what this is for a site plan to talk about density. This isn't a design. We'd have to go back through planning staff for the design elevations and the final site plan approval. And we're open to public comment on that. On all our properties, we welcome the neighboring communities to give us feedback on what they'd like to see. This is just for a site plan, just to establish density. A misnomer is transient living. I own a project at 115th Avenue in Van Buren. It's a gorgeous property. It's 90% full. And I have 12 to 13-month leases. That's not transient living. We don't do 1, 2, 3-month living, temporary housing. And I want to address one other item in terms of vacancy. And you're saying, well, there's too many apartments. Actually, we have not built to the demand. What we've had is an issue of single-family housing that we had a variable. It was always an unknown variable into our underwriting now that we're competing with. There's too much shadow housing rental that we're competing with, and that's got to burn off. When you see the apartments that you say free rent or concessions, it's not an overbuild issue. We've only are bringing on 5,000 units this year. The demand's about 10, but that other 5 has been taken by the single-family homes. On an apples-to-apples comparison, 1,500 square foot house that's being rented by a group, by a family, and the owner will take anything to cover debt service, we're losing out. It's not an issue of an overbuild of apartments. Where we're at right now is at about a 13.5% Metro Phoenix vacancy. As we can track apartments, if you're not in the ground now under construction, you're not happening. We've all stopped. So in 2000, right now, 2009, we're at 13.5. The projections that we have from our analysts, and we do this every day, in 2010 it'll drop to 10.5. In 2011 it'll be 8, and in 2012 it'll be 5. And you're going to see a huge demand for housing. Not everyone is going to be buying a single-family home. We've all seen that. So our reasoning for increasing density from 12 to 18 is an apartment developer can't do 12 units together to make it work, 12 units to the acre to make it work, because we have fixed costs across the board. Whether you build a 300-unit project or a 150-unit project, we still have those fixed costs. And if we can't put the amenities that we want to put in because of our density being too low, it doesn't work. That was geared towards a condo developer. A condo developer could not do that deal today because the price point would compete with the single-family homes that are for sale in this market, and the attitude would be is, why would I buy a condo if I can go buy a house with a pool at the same price? So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And I'll ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
Adopt Ordinance 09-1184, amending a portion of the Palm Valley Phase 8 planned area development to amend the planned land use for Tract E, a 7.5-acre parcel generally located at the northeast corner of 159th Avenue and McDowell Road from medium-density residential to high-density residential to increase the maximum allowable building height from 30 feet to 40 feet and to decrease the minimum building setback from the north and east property lines from 75 feet to 50 feet, adopting supplementary zoning map number 08-010 to provide for the zoning amendment, providing separability, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. Motion?
Well, can I ask procedurally, can we maybe ask some questions of the applicant before we do a motion, or you want a motion?
We should have a motion
Let's
first.
get the motion.
Motion.
I'll let somebody else.
Because I wanted to ask some questions from the homeowners.
Well, I'll go ahead and put a motion on the table. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go one way or another. I may have some amendments here.
No, we know that.
Applicant. So I'll go ahead and move that we approve ordinance, the ordinance as read by the clerk.
Second motion.
A motion from Councilmember Antonek and a second from Councilmember Souza. Councilmember Antonek, you want to start it off?
Yeah, if I could have I don't know if the applicant would be best, or maybe all three of you, between the applicant, Mitch, and staff. I'm going to have some questions that I'm sure will garner responses from all three of you. Specifically talking, so obviously this came as quite a shock to the neighbors. They came out and talked at P&Z, had a 4-2 vote at P&Z, and we've heard some of that discussion tonight. The 30 to 40 foot height being of big concern, the setback from 50 to 75 feet, which you addressed, and the dwelling units going from 12 to an acre to 18 to the acre. We are actually upzoning this from 6 to 12 to 12 to 25, correct? Am I not reading that correctly? What we've got it from?
Yes, that's what it says.
Can you address that? Because I'm reading this, and we're going from medium-density residential to high-density residential, which allows 12 to 25.
Mr. Mayor, council members, that 12 to 25, that's the Suncor designation. However, staff in the city, we go with the 18. Our equivalent is the MF18.
Still medium.
So it's capped at 18 units per acre.
Okay,
That's the
so it is
maximum
capped
density.
at 18 units
Yes,
per
sir.
acre. Okay. Seeing the residents' concern on the setback, have you had any discussion about stepping down the buildings that are on the east side, perhaps going with one story and like kind of what you did on the northeast or northwest and southwest corners, you've got a 1 and a 2. Have you talked about perhaps doing a 1 and a 2, with the far east side being a 1-story and the...
Is it possible to get, oh, there we go.
And then maybe, as you're addressing that, if you could tell me, how many units are we talking about in each of the 2-story structures on the east side of the property?
Yes, sir. A couple things. Back to your first question. The maximum density allowable now on the site plan is 12 units per acre.
Okay.
What we've been stipulated by staff is that we're asking for an increase of 6 units per acre, or a total of 40 units total of an increase. So it's going from a request for 12 units per acre, which is already the existing zoning, to 18 units per acre.
Okay.
That's our request. With regard to the setback, we own all of these lots here, and
None of them are built on yet?
not to the best of my knowledge.
No, they're not. I drove around there
Okay,
today.
all right.
That section
It's all
doesn't have
open.
any homes. It's
Okay.
just
the North Berkeley's
just where the
got
model
homes.
home is, in
Okay.
that area on that wall.
Right here. While there are no building plans here for two-story residential units, two-story residential units could be built here, and they would have 25-foot yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks. These multifamily projects are conditioned to be two-story, won't be over 30 feet, which is similar to the single-family residential height restrictions. But if you grant our request, we would be stipulated to have a minimum of 50 feet rather than 25 feet, like our neighbor would as a single-family residential. This is a Rubik's Cube to a certain degree. Staff has stipulated that we have one-stories here. It would be difficult to do one-stories back here and achieve the density that we're trying to achieve. And I'm not sure that the impact on this would be significant. One thing that might be considered is how staff stipulates these units from an architectural standpoint are developed, and that they make special attention to the design on the back of those units. I don't know if that would work for the developer, but that's something, as I hear your sensitivity to. But I would tell you that these units are similar in size to a single-family residential unit. There are 4 units per floor, and there are 2 floors.
Okay. I got to ask, I saw everybody move up from the back of the room.
No,
Those are all vacant parcels, or is there some objection? Sorry, when I asked that question, everybody walked up behind you, Mitch. So
Information is inaccurate. For example, yes, those are vacant at this time.
you're going to have to, sorry.
But there's some other ones right in here that have been built by the model homes. There's a couple of them in there.
Those are all sold, ma'am? Everything on the north side
You can
that
point
you're
at the
seeing.
map right in front of you on the right if you'd like to refer to it. We see your finger.
Items here, these homes have been sold. These have not yet. There are homes sold here. However, as Mr. Rosen has said, no, none of these will be 2-story homes. This is a single-story home community, 1 level above ground only. That's the way these were built, the whole entire community. And of course, until they come back and ask for yet another zoning thing so they can make more money. I ask that we take that into consideration when we talk about these things. I don't know why we're having Suncor talk about this, because they're not going to develop this property at all. So they want to sell it.
That's neither here nor there. They're the applicants, so we've got to let them.
The difference is they are all 1-story homes. There is no 2-story to block view for anybody else.
While you're there, sir, how many homes are really affected by this project, by the change in this project?
So there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of homes that are actually
18.
built. About 20 homes right now.
Okay, and all of you bought there because you saw that there wasn't any encroachment like we're talking about here.
Yes, sir. We knew that this was supposed to be a townhome community or less. That fits with the neighborhood, not apartments, but a townhome community fits. That's what we bought into. We didn't buy into an apartment community neighborhood. We have very expensive homes that are new. So this isn't a neighborhood that was built in 2005. These are homes where I just did my year walkthrough, which means that I bought at the bottom of this crunch that they talk about, not the upswing. So these are homes that are still in the $300,000 range today, not 2 years ago when people were paying overinflated prices. So to do that, where we talk about apartment complexes, that's not what we bought into, no, sir. We didn't buy into an apartment complex that the only thing that separated us was a 6-foot cinder block wall. That's not what we bought into. We bought in under the understanding it would be townhomes, owner-occupied or owned townhomes, not an apartment complex.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me address this question to staff. So is it factual, these are single-story homes? Is that neighborhood stipulated to single-story homes only?
Mayor, Council, and Toniak, all the homes in that area are currently single-story. That is, by Suncor's option in building that particular subdivision, that's the only type of product that they offered. There is no zoning stipulation that limits it to 1 story. Any of these adjacent homes could be built at 2-story homes if a home builder desired to do so. So there is no restriction for single-story, single-family residence within that adjacent residential development.
No, okay. Not even within their CCNRs?
No, not that I'm aware of. It was just strictly that this particular product that they were offering in this subdivision only had, in that product series, single-story homes.
I guess I'll articulate what I'm struggling with, which is fairly obvious here. I mean, we've got a group of neighbors that have moved in under one condition, and obviously housing markets change significantly. You all, as Suncor, are going to, and respectfully so, Golden Heritage Homes will become a new home building division of someone else, and this specific unit is being sold off to someone else as well. So what happens in that neighborhood probably is yet to be seen to some extent, whether it can be single or 2-story. I do share, albeit no homes in that area. You know, you move into a neighborhood, you do have that condition that you kind of understand. The home builders building single-story homes with basements. They're, you know, you have a 75-foot setback, albeit you could have had a vehicle 15 feet from your, 30 feet from your back fence instead of a housing unit 30 feet from your back fence. The conditions have drastically changed. I would like to see us work towards some mitigation or some solution in terms of perhaps stepping down a little bit on that. Maybe it's 115 units on that. I don't know if that would
You mean go back to all
suffice.
2-story?
Well, not necessarily 2-story throughout the entire parcel. I think there's a happy medium here somewhere between 12 and 18. I don't know exactly what it is, and I'm sorry.
I don't think so, because I think what he was stating is, and do the amenities, that's why you needed that density. Yeah, I think that's...
Well, I mean, I guess I would, you know what, and I'm, Mr. Gelser's comment completely out of context and objectionable to the mayor, I'm sure, and I entertain him from time to time, but anyhow, that's neither here nor there. But the high-intensity mixed-use corridor, and sorry, Frank, that you're getting frustrated with my comments, but we got to give these things due diligence when we have 25 people in the back of the room. Anyhow, the high-intensity mixed-use corridor, a bit taken out of context. I think I fabricated that at the general plan. I was working in the transit industry at the time, and there was about 5 or 6 of us pretty passionate about transit, and it brought the high-intensity mixed-use corridor, quite candidly, in my estimation, would bring, while it may not have been well-defined in the general plan, would have brought those setbacks closer to McDowell, would have brought that walkability to McDowell and the shopping corridors that are going to be across the street a little bit closer to that, encouraged perhaps a bus stop, if there isn't one already, at that intersection or close to that intersection, so that way transit was accessible and allowed for those kind of things. So the high-intensity mixed-use corridor, to me, a little taken out of context. I understand you're making a defense for it for your application, but I would be willing to move some things closer to the corridor and give you more density down towards the southwest corner of that property, closer to McDowell and 159th, in order to make your project work. Things that are objectionable to me that may meet the spirit of our ordinances are perhaps the trash that's right up against the back of the house, and that may meet it, but I'd like to see you move the trash interior of its own, of the complex, both on the southeast corner and the northeast corner, and perhaps on the northwest corner. There might be a trash receptacle as well. I'd like to see that moved into the interior of the deal. So, you know, for me, there's a lot of little pieces of this development. I know I'm being nitpicky here, responding to some of the neighborhood concerns. But maybe the site plan comes back to us or to P&Z. I don't want to make you go through a bunch of hurdles, but I don't know if it comes back to us, if that's a good idea. If I'm in a minority here, fine.
No,
If I'm not in a minority, let's have the discussion about what we do here. I want you to have a profitable project, brings impact fees, brings
What do we
zoning
do
fees
this? We
into
send
us.
this back to
So-
staff?
What if
and
we
let
were
them
to
work it
just
out?
continue this?
I don't have any objection to continuing it. I don't know if the applicant has an objection to continuing it a few weeks.
Can I say something here?
Yes.
My concern here is the philosophy and why this thing was put together in this manner. And if someone would explain that to me, because this doesn't, it doesn't seem to me that rental homes in this area with all these open areas of single-family homes, and God, I've looked at so many of these in the past, and I'm trying to figure out how this happened this way, because this shouldn't be. The way this is designed, this should be something else. And the reason you put in the apartments and the high density is to cover an area so that it's close to shopping in some place where these people are going to walk. And right now, I see nothing. Well, there will be something, I'm sure, across the street across McDowell South. But this thing is further north than that. And I'm concerned that's not going to be much shopping in that little area anyway. But why would you put that much, those apartments in that area? I mean, it's just like you're stamping them right down the middle of this. I wouldn't like that. I think that's a mistake. I think that's not I've not seen a development like this. Would someone show me someone who's done this before? Show me how this works, that this fits into a single-family development like this. I guess maybe that's the thing I'd like to see.
Can I ask a question?
Let me go to the vice mayor next.
Come on, let's get some.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I really struggle with this, and you know I'm a real estate person. When I looked at this, I've driven around both areas we're going to consider tonight, and I actually drove down the street and the cul-de-sac, got out of the car and looked, and I went down to the other street where all houses aren't built, got out of the car and walked it, came back up again, went back again, just because of you do such a good job when you build neighborhoods, and you do a wonderful job developing the homes. And so when I drive in there, I know Suncor, if it's, anything they've done, it's class. And so I'm having a hard time with this. I really am. I understand the market. I understand the need. You need to sell your land, and I know you're looking to have something very nicely developed, but we are putting a real burden on this community. And I'm really, I'm not for the 3-story at all in this community. That would be just no. I'm sorry that it doesn't provide the density. I know the marketing value, and but I just can't. I can't condone it for the area that this sits in. So I'm having a great deal of difficulty on this.
Sounds like a lot of people are. Would you like it to be continued and see if they can come back with something? Variation on this?
Mr. Mayor, what would be, let me ask the applicant, what would be, or staff, what would be appropriate? Come back July 13? That's our meeting before we go on break?
I'm not through with this. I want to hear the answer to my question, and I didn't get that. Because what are they going to come back with?
Yeah.
Philosophically, I want to know why this is in there and why this was designed for this. Philosophically, because it might help us understand this, but my God, I've been through
planning and zoning since 1995, and I've been on the council since 2000, and I've not seen one that fits in the middle of this, and I want to know philosophically what the developer had in mind when he put this in here.
Can I add to Frank's question? Could you tell me what you had in mind for this future commercial development that's across the street from it?
Who knows?
I know you don't know. I mean, there's no answers now, especially in this economy. And developer, I understand where you're coming from. You're right on the density. I went through a book that we talked about future density and the things that are going to happen in the city. You're right. So I'm not questioning that.
It's right here. But
I'm just curious, was this how much, what is the acreage there, and what did you, I mean, you had to have some vision for that commercial that sits across the street that's connected to all of this.
This is Mitch Rosen with Suncor Development Company, and as I was watching the budget hearings, I was thinking about how much respect I have for the process and the people that run the process. And I would tell you that I continue to have that, whether or not we get an approval or don't get approval, it's a beautiful thing. I don't much appreciate kind of the ganging up sometimes from community and that kind of thing. I think that there's an appropriate discourse to go on. The piece that is immediately to the west is a commercial piece that we no longer own. But to put it into context, and Councilmember Cavalier, I will try and speak to your philosophical question in a bit. 15 years ago, more, we did a master plan, and you try when you're doing the master plan from a big picture standpoint to do land uses like I watched you all work on with your city center project, where you don't know what it's going to be, but you want to designate certain zones to be certain things. And this project, with its proximity to the freeway and the commercial that's going to be across the street from it as it builds out, it isn't necessarily logical to have single-family residential on this corner where there'll be a lot of activity. Okay? So sometimes they put commercial projects on these corners as transitional types of uses, as buffer types of uses, because there's a lot of activity on corners. And I know when I came here 9 years ago and I bought my house, I thought there was a quiet street that was going to be built right behind me, and because it's a feeder to a small neighborhood. And I moved because I couldn't stand the traffic behind it, because there was no transition or buffer use. Okay. To Councilmember Cavalier's question about how we got to this, the way that the process works for a zone modification, zone change, is you are required to present a site plan. That's just the way it works. We started 9 months ago on this and are required to provide a site plan. Whether it gets built or not, we are required. And the council then focuses in on it as though this is the way it's going to be. To Councilmember Lord's comment about we do a nice job, a significant amount of the development that's occurred in Palm Valley has occurred by other developers that are required to come to us for architectural review before they come to the city. That's the same stipulation that this property has on it and would have on it. You wouldn't even see it until after it was approved by Suncor's Architectural Review Committee. That is standard practice, and it's a stipulation on this property. So if the council finds it that it is not supportive of this, that's fine. That's the process that we go through. The reason that I'm in front of you is because the underlying zoning at a maximum of 12 units an acre doesn't work in a suburban market like this, because as the gentleman from Vivo Partners said, generally speaking, you can't produce a house in that kind of environment at a price that is desirable, because in suburban marketplaces, the buyer will go to a single-family resident. So we have a parcel that is zoned for 12 units per acre. We're asking for an additional 40 units, or six units per acre, and we're asking for an additional 10 feet. And that 10 feet would only find itself here. It's about 180 feet off of the back here. Now here, if this was single-family residential, these two-story houses would be right up against the other two-story houses. That could happen here. Okay? So if you want a continuance, I'm respectful of that and would be willing to do that. Okay? But I would ask you to provide some guidance so that we could respond based on what I've shared with you now. We go through, we make the presentations, and then we look at the site plan and we say, I don't like this and we don't like this. But Suncor has built out Palm Valley, is a proud developer in this community, and this is one of the pieces of the mosaic that didn't work in a really good market. And so we're looking to try and figure out how to position it differently. I left my entry feature back in the back. But that's what the edge of this project's going to look like as people come into the community. This beautiful entry here, condition it so it has a beautiful gated entry. Okay? And the staff required it to have single family on the end, or I'm sorry, single story on the ends. For the most part, you won't see much of this. And these homes here, we own them. We own the land here. We're full aware of the impact to the remainder of our property. This concept about all we want to do is sell land, and we just want to get out of here and sell land. We've been here for a long time, and we'll be here for a long time. And this is our approach to looking at this site to try and figure out how to do a viable development on it, respectful of this community and our master plan.
And essentially, the question I have for you now, if this did not work and you decided to sell this land to another developer, he could build two-story homes in the entire area. Is that correct?
Councilmember Lord, if you're referring to this property here,
Yeah, I'm talking about this little patch. If you decide to take a loss and sell it and put single families in it.
which you're talking about this property,
Okay.
you're talking
All
about
right,
this
never
piece
mind.
here?
Gary told me it has to be rezoned. Okay.
It's zoned for 12 units, and if you're talking about right now, we can do two-story, two-story right here just as it is. I mean, it would just 12 units per acre, would just do two-story around here, two-story around here. It'd be no different. It would have no different impact. It's just how the allocation occurs, and the density occurs in the center of the project. Thank you.
Okay. Did you want
Clarify, now I'm not, the single-family housing development that surrounds this property does not have to be rezoned to have two-story homes on it, does it?
He's talking, no, I talked about this patch.
No.
You're referring to this patch when
Yeah.
you say that. Okay, I just want to make sure we're being
No,
clear.
no.
I guess, Mitch, I respect your presentation. I mean, I think we've all, there's no doubt Suncor's been, Suncor's, I guess with the process, the exchange between the council previous to all of us and yourselves as landowners have made Goodyear a mark on the map and have made that a desirable place and a destination. So I hope my comments specifically were not disrespectful to you all. But I guess I don't have an objection to going to 18 units to the acre. My objection, I guess, is to the picture, and you stated it very poignantly, is that you have to show us a picture, and so you show us a picture. I guess, is there a willingness on your part to bring back a few pictures to us if we were to continue this, and maybe work with staff and get some specific objections, or is there the desire of, if council doesn't want to move on 18 units to the acre?
Can I speak?
But, yeah, I guess I'm willing to continue it. I'm willing to talk 18 units to the acre. I'm willing to talk to the developer and the neighborhood and work with y'all. I'll leave it at that, and I'll wait.
Okay. Thank you. Respectfully, 6 years I was on planning and zoning and have been out here in this town for 14 years. And I have respected when Suncor has seen when markets have changed, when they have even completely torn down shopping centers because the markets have changed and they've presented something that was better. Rarely have I found where I did not like a project, but occasionally I did voice my concern. Currently, you have done your market analysis and you see what is being sold out there, and I respect that. However, for this section, the market might be correct for that product, but I don't think the neighborhood is correct for that product. And so what I would like to ask for the continuance, I think the biggest concern for me are the 3-story buildings that are just south of the homes behind it. I think that, as it was stated, even if it was changing some of the other core stories that were closer to McDowell, possibly we could discuss that. So I am willing for a continuance depending on how everybody else feels. Thank you.
And let me just try to make sure we understand. We're talking about 18 units to the acre. We're talking about a setback, and we're talking about 3-story, correct? Those are the issues?
In the center.
So it sounds like someone, Councilmember Antoniak says no problem with the 18 units to the acre. If it were 2-story, apparently Councilmember Osborne wouldn't have any problem with the development. It's really, this is strictly zoning, by the way. This is not a final site plan. So are we really that far apart here? Isn't it 3 issues we're talking about, or am I wrong?
You know, Mr. Porter always said it best. This is the point where we have the most control as a council representing people. And so I think a continuance is probably in order. I mean, there's definitely some disagreement here, maybe differences of opinion or different views on this. I think you said it best. I think there's some elements of this that don't fit in the neighborhood. I think we can get to 18 units to the acre and have it fit. I think there is that achievable nexus somewhere, seeing some different ideas on the table.
I'm sorry, I do have one, actually a different thought process was coming to my mind altogether when I saw this. And how large of units are these? I mean, are we speaking 3 bedrooms, or, I mean, how big, and really what is the market that you will be going after? Are we talking about a lot of families? Because I don't see this as being family friendly.
Well, it's a 1, 2, and 3 bedroom product. It's about, our typical formula is about 30 to 40% 1s, 40% 2s, and then about 20% 3s, and it varies in certain markets. So that's kind of in our price point. Our average rent is probably $950 to $1,100. So, you know, there are apples to apples on some mortgages in the given area. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve a lifestyle for worker bees or the individuals that are transitioning into housing at some point. We actually, to answer your question, Councilmember Cavalier, we were approached by Suncor of a project that we did that has that same layout and surprise, and that is since the model that they use for all their future apartment developments. And I'd be more than happy to take you out there. It's a quaint, it's a 142-unit project.
I would like to see that.
That's the one that Mitch had showed the front entryway. We do the porte-cochere, we do the stone, we do.
It looks familiar. I might have.
Yeah, so that's how we got to that point. That's how we got to that layout. Now, when we did this initial site planning, we didn't do it. Suncor did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have certain boundaries here and there. We were told sometimes we do carriage units, which are single-story or double-story over garages, and we would have done those against McDowell and then do the facade nice, where we take off we would take some relief off the back and the side. I mean, we can be creative. It's just when we underwrite it, when Suncor approaches us and we say, okay, we're going to buy it, we need to make it to a certain number of units, and that unit makes.
These don't have garages either, do they?
These do not. That project does, and we could put those in, but again, we were told we can't have anything off McDowell, and then we could not have anything on the northern border of the homes, and then the
I
two
think-
stories.
I think having open parking, especially the way things are today, is asking for trouble. And for those to be quality apartments where you're going to get quality people in there, they're going to want garages too.
Well, a little known fact on that, most people, if they have the choice, forego the garage right now.
They forego the garage? Really?
This is
And the other thing,
purely
I thought
price-driven
there was
market.
a study going on that showed that indicated that people in bigger homes are that are wanting to now get out of those bigger homes, they want to downsize, you want to call it downsize. I don't know if it's downsizing, but they want to, I've heard a lot of this, and I thought there were studies being done that said this is what they want to do, is move into something they can own in a smaller, like condos. And so it surprised me that you're going from condos to rental units, I guess.
Well, we only do rental units, because that's all we know. We don't do,
Yeah.
we didn't get crazy with condos, and that market is gone, and that won't be back for a long time.
Really?
And we build out ours, and if you were to tour these, to condo specs, where they're stainless steel appliances.
Let me just summarize.
You know, I mean, they're all fully,
One question.
So these rent for, what is the average rent on, say, a two-bedroom, let's say a 2 to 3 bedroom?
a two-bedroom right now on
Today's
a
market.
project that I have at 115th Avenue in Van Buren, and that's probably one you
This
could go
one is-
look at. It's right across from the city of Avondale. Actually, Steve did a project for us there a long time ago, and then we built upon that. And this is right across from the City Hall, or Avondale City Hall, and it's got the same entryway and clubhouse. And on our twos, we're probably getting, now you got to keep in mind, we still have concessions. So we're probably around 90 cents, 95 cents a foot, if you wanted to look at it that way. Our average square foot is around 900 square feet a unit on average.
I have one more question for staff. Where did they get the idea that townhomes were going to be built in there as opposed to apartments? Where did that information come from? Just give me some history.
Mayor, Councilman Lord, that goes back to the initial development of the Palm Valley Master Plan, which is on the screen. And as you can see that, through the overall master planning of their thousands of acres, providing a mix of land uses, a range of residential densities from single family to medium density to high density. And, as alluded earlier, from Mr. Rosen, they initially go out and give you a best estimate for a good balance of land uses for the master plan community to meet not only the market, but good land use planning principles of providing that diversity. And on the screen, there's the red is commercial, this color is single family. This is a property we're talking about. It was designated as medium density. It's kind of an orange, but you see other ones spotted throughout. The pink is the high density. That's what they're asking for this property. But you notice that they're located and scattered throughout the development. And generally good land use principles providing the higher densities adjacent to arterial streets, collector roadways, and also adjacent and in proximity to commercial services. So it's based upon the overall master plan and planning principles regards to the location of those land uses and compatibility and transitioning land uses from the lower density to higher density to the major streets to the commercial.
So help me, because at this point, what is the density if it was townhomes? How many townhomes would they build in that?
On this
Just
particular
give me an
property?
idea. Pardon me?
On this particular
Yes.
property?
Mhm.
12 units times the acreage of the property, Steve?
What is it, 5 acres?
Sorry? 84 units. And they'd be asking to increase that by 6 units per acre, which takes up to 136.
I don't think you're going to get an approval this evening. I don't see
Mr.
4
Mayor,
votes.
I was the motion maker. I'm going to, can I take my motion off the table and move that we continue this we have a meeting on July 13th?
I don't,
Yeah, she can just make a motion to continue.
Can we,
With the motion on the table.
can they be ready by July 13th?
Well, I mean, maybe it's not a date specific if I don't have an objection to hearing this again in
Yeah.
3.5, 4 weeks. Otherwise, it's August, late August or early September before we hear it again.
You know, if I were a neighbor, and I sort of am, actually, I'm not far from it, I wouldn't be happy with these size units without garages. I wouldn't like that. I don't think I'd want that for neighboring area.
Where are they going to put the car? That's right.
It's also a reflection of the quality of the development.
Exactly.
The question is with regard to a continuance, if the council's pleasure is to continue it, the applicant is fine with a continuation on this. I'd ask for some direction, if there is any. I'm happy to go back and try and redo it, but I need to understand a little bit about the sensitivity. I want to reemphasize that the density is found away in the center. The density is found away in the center. Whether these were townhomes or not, the zoning allows them to be 12-unit per acre apartment complex.
And 2 stories.
And 2 stories. You bet. With regard to the setback, that is correct. The setback requires 75 feet for a unit, which means that you can have a 30-foot landscape setback, and then you can put parking there. And so what we were simply asking, we thought it would make the site plan better in its totality, both to the adjacent property owners and to the site plan, to have a waiver of 50 feet. So, a waiver with the landscape on it. But the issue here is, if council does not see fit to support an increase in density, we take it one at a time. I respectfully understand that. And what will be left will be a project with 12 units per acre. Please understand that that has not been successful in suburban markets like this. They tried to do it. It didn't work. The one project where they proceeded with that, now they're being sold to individual owners, and they're renting them out. And they don't have the amenities that this project would have. The clubhouse, the pool. I completely understand the neighbors' concern about multifamily. This project is going to be multifamily, unless we go through and change it to something else, which is an entirely different discussion. So I respectfully look to
Mr. Mayor, is this something we're going to have with all those properties that are marked in this
The next
pink?
one, you mean?
I mean, we got several of those in that whole neighborhood. And I guess when we approved that, we didn't realize that that's what these were. And then second thing, I know it was a long time ago. Second thing, generally when we look at something like this and someone says, hey, Councilman Cavalier, I want to take you out and show you where one of these are. I want to see it in Paradise Valley or Scottsdale, because that's where they generally took me out to see. Do you have one of these somewhere like that?
Surprise.
There's one in Surprise, you say. Is that?
Yes,
Because I would like to see. I would like to see. Actually, walk on the site and look at these.
yes. This is the project in Surprise that Vivo Partners developed. Okay.
Well, I'd like to make an appointment with you.
Yes, sir.
Someone there too, and I would like to visit this.
And I'd encourage it. Please note that the fact set there is different than the fact set here. For example, the setbacks are different in Surprise than they are in Goodyear. Secondly, this was built at a different moment in time than this.
Right.
So, but I'd encourage it. I'd encourage it.
I'd like to do that.
Okay, let's go to Councilmember Antoniak.
Yeah,
You made
Mr.
the
Mayor,
motion.
I made the original motion. I'll take the motion off the table and make a motion that we continue this case.
I'll second it.
Who was his second, though? Okay, and you agree?
Yep.
Take it off the table?
Yep.
Okay, the motion's removed, and the new motion is just continue.
Yeah, I don't need a date specific. If you can make it back by the 13th and work with the neighbor. Here's just
table it.
my rationale for this. I think we can come to a better project with the neighborhood, with you, than the 12th. And I think with you, I mean, I lived in one of these communities. I don't object to one of them. I walked down the street half a mile, bought my first house from it. in Chandler. So I know exactly what, this is definitely an attractive project. You're an attractive developer, and I think we can come to a happy medium between the neighborhood and you.
I have a motion to continue, correct? Do I have a second?
Yep. Yeah, I second.
Okay, that's correct. All those in favor of the motion to continue, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Continue to date indefinite, correct?
I can get it.
Stand up for me. Just like this.
Okay, we'll have a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance to amend Parcel 4 within the Palm Valley Promenade Planned Area Development, and from commercial to high-density residential. I'll open the public hearing. Staff presentation by Steve again.
Thank you again, Mayor, council members. This is Parcel 4, Palm Valley Promenade. Difference between the last case, this time the parcel is designated for commercial. The request is to go to high-density residential, capped at the 18 units per acre. Surrounding Parcel 4, Lifetime Fitness to the south, existing apartment complex to the north, existing single-family residential to the east, undeveloped commercial property here to the west. And this is the future site for the West Core Mall right here across from Bullard. This is the conceptual site plan included with the PAD amendment. Again, the numbers on the building correspond to number of stories. 2-story buildings along the street, higher buildings within the center as they work their way west here adjacent to other commercial. Entrance to the site is right here, which lines up with the neighborhood to the east. Neighborhood meeting, May 12th. Several residents from the surrounding area did attend the meeting. Several of them were opposed to this request. May 20th, Planning Commission. Several residents, stakeholders again attended the meeting. Opposition again voiced to this request. The commission did ultimately take action to recommend approval. Staff also is recommending approval. We do find it consistent with our general plan and compatible with the surrounding area. With that, Mr. Mayor, my presentation is finished.
And the P&Z vote was, did you say 4-2?
This was 6-0.
The other one was 4-2.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
No, this one I don't see a problem.
Okay, opportunity for the applicant.
This is where it goes.
I know it's tough.
No, this
This is the right
apartments are there. They seem to work out. No, this would be okay. But you got the apartments there already. That seems to work out. I don't think that's a problem. Andiamo. I like that.
Mayor, members of the council, Mitch Rosen with Suncor Development Company. I feel warmed up now. It's funny when you know, just on an aside, when you come up and approach in a formal environment, nervous, and I don't feel
tough,
that now.
isn't it?
I don't feel it. We've had a good stimulating discussion, and I feel fine.
You're okay.
How's that? With regard to this project, this project has some of the same issues and some different issues. Like other property in Palm Valley, we did a master plan, and we talked about that in our last application, where we were looking from a big picture standpoint, and it made sense for this entire PAD to be commercial without any development on it. But as you start to sell things and pieces of the puzzle start to move into place, it has impacts on the remainder. In this case, what I'm speaking to is we worked very hard to sell Lifetime Fitness their facility. Lifetime Fitness had a significant impact on the remainder of the property as a result. Now, you don't know when you're doing the master plan who's going to come and what it's going to look like, but it's like chess pieces, and when something happens, it's a domino and other things occur as well. As a result, we have this loop road program that we anticipate starting construction on in January. We have a traffic signal here. We have a traffic signal here, both programmed. And what's left in the back of this property is this piece, which is approximately 10 acres. It's commercially zoned. It is not a viable commercial property. In this case, we're asking for what I consider a down zone in the property, from commercial use to residential use, multifamily residential use. Part of, when the mall comes in, that mosaic of mix of uses that occur in the surrounding area to support what's going to be developed in the area. There's a couple things that are happening with this parcel, and that is there is a significant amount of commercial property in this area. Candidly, too much commercial property to be supported anytime in the reasonable distance. If this property were to be developed as commercial property, it would be highly likely that the rear of the property would face on 145th, and the front of the property would face internal. Okay, and I'll go back to this other site plan. Much of this property has been sold off to the same developer that has now built the P.F. Chang's, and they would like to see some of the similar development. So if there was a commercial project here on this 10 acres, it would be on the loop road. It would likely be facing the loop road, and the back of it would be over here. The allowable height for commercial development is, I believe, 56 feet. 56 feet. Staff has conditioned this property to have two-story product along the front with single-story at the entries. So this would not be in excess of 30 feet. In addition to that, these are required to be 4 units per floor. So they're breaking up the articulation rather than having a wall. This is Lifetime Fitness, immediately to the south, fronting on 145th. That's me. Okay. This is, as much as you want to pretty up the back of whatever would be developed there as a commercial project, it's going to be the back, likely, of a commercial project. And it could have this kind of scale. What we're proposing, along the edge again, is to have something that has more similar in scale to single-family residential in its height and its density. I think it's also important to understand the view corridor. And what I'm going to show you here is what happens when there's something in front of something larger in back. And this is two-story product here. This is the entry gate, man gate. And the next picture is shown, I just move around here. And what I'm trying to show you there is from a perspective standpoint, from a human scale standpoint, what happens to that which is behind it.
Is that a guard shack that has a guard in it at all times?
I don't believe so. I've never seen it.
I drove in there today. The gates were open, there was nobody. I drove all around.
Did you check on the floor? The guard could have been sleeping.
I checked all over.
Just curious.
I didn't see the little man by the Lifetime, though.
So, again, what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that the scale here versus this type of scale. And again, the reason I'm here asking for a change in zoning from commercial to multifamily is because this is a use that is, in my opinion, a logical type of use for this location. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is a public hearing. Comments from the public?
I have 2 speaker cards. The first one is Britt Mitchie.
Hello, my name is Britt Mitchie. I live at 2074 North 144th Drive in Goodyear, pretty much right behind this. I don't have a problem with Suncor. I live in a Golden Heritage. I think it's beautiful. I understand that we need high-density residential in some places. What, Mrs. Lord, maybe you saw today when you were driving around is I could stand in my backyard and almost throw a stone and hit 2 apartment complexes right on the corner of Bullard, and I believe that's Encanto right there. I called today to the newest one, and they said they're at 50% of their leasing right now, and that's up to 328. And then the other one, the Palm Valley one, and I think there's a woman here that's going to give you better numbers than I can. She said they've been open since 2005. Their physical occupancy right now is 63%, and the highest they've ever gotten is 75. So I just don't see the point of putting another high occupancy right next to the other ones. So I'll be brief because I have a sitter who's now on overtime. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Debbie Morgan.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I equally will be brief because you have to all be exhausted. I am Debbie Morgan Marshall. I do reside at 2100 North 145th Avenue. I am the community manager for Adiamo Palm Valley, the apartment community that is exactly north of the area that we're looking at in the proposed. We understand, and we equally were part of the Suncor. As far as we are concerned, yes, they do deliver a beautiful product. But I can't help but ask each and every one, when is enough enough? You talk about saturation. We do see what the hard economic conditions and the strain on current housing today. We could go on and go on about that. Is it a quick fix? No, it's not. This is for years down the road. We have homes with signs that are just breaking off because they are facing foreclosure. And yet what's our answer? Let's not bring some more commercial that would give employment to people. Let's bring more apartment communities. There's already, as we've heard, 3,600 already approved units. Already approved. Yes, it is true what Bert just said. It is very true. I spoke with her today as I've done my homework like many people. 18%, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at 18% to 88% occupancies today. That is where we are today. That's it. We're not even able to command full market rent. Sir, I do believe you asked what the average 2-bedroom was going for. Ours should be commanding $1,030. Now, I want you to know, come on down and I'll apply you, and I'm going to let you have that for $795. For those communities out there that are managed communities, typically, you have to be 70% occupied for the owner to be able to make their bills. Try doing it off of 60% of that. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Further comments from the public? Close the public hearing. Ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only, please.
Adopt Ordinance 09-1185, amending a portion of the Palm Valley Promenade Planned Area Development to amend the planned land use for Parcel 4A, 10.42 acre parcel generally located on the west side of 145th Avenue, approximately 700 feet north of McDowell Road, from mixed-use commercial to high-density residential, and to increase the maximum allowable building height from 30 feet to 40 feet, adopting supplementary zoning map number 08-011 to provide for the zoning amendment, providing separability, and providing for an effective date.
Do I have a motion?
I move we adopt ordinance 09-1185
I'll
as
second.
read by the city clerk.
A motion from the Vice Mayor and a second from Councilmember Cavalier. It's open for discussion.
I'll start it off. I have to tell you, about 9 months to a year ago, I was looking to build my own store. And I actually went around this area looking for commercial pads, looking for where other commercial centers were. And we drove through this area, and the first thing I said was, oh, no, this is too hidden. I would never be here. So I would like to give you that respect as a business owner that would not go there for her business. It's too hidden. But let's look, I understand currently what our citizens stated about the current market and the struggles of renting out these apartments. But let's look 5-10 years from now, when things are a little bit back to normal. What's the best fit for this spot? If it's not commercial, because it's not a viable commercial area, then what's best? Single-family homes? No. Sitting between commercial and existing apartments, we wouldn't want to put single-family homes. So what's the next viable option? What's the least item that's going to affect the other surrounding properties? This is where that market analysis by Suncor does fit. In my opinion, it didn't fit in the last case, but it does fit here. So that's what I'd like to say. Thanks.
Vice Mayor?
I agree, Joanne, well said. I didn't have any hesitation with this when I looked at to approve it. I drove down there today, again, got out of the car, drove in the gated community, looked around there, and I think this fits perfectly for that area.
Councilmember Souza?
What I think we ought to give a guest allowance to the Vice Mayor.
Oh.
He said you ought to get a gas allowance. You do a lot of driving around.
Oh, the citizens would get mad at that.
Yeah. I'm looking at this from a perspective of how close this property is going to be to the mall itself when it's built. And everybody that's going to be employed at the mall certainly aren't going to be homeowners. They're going to be apartment dwellers. And that's one of the reasons I feel that this project is warranted. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Two questions. Is the gate is it a gate on the west end of the property? Access only for the residents, right? Yes, no, did we stipulate that? This is a gated.
Is it a gated?
Is this a gated project? Sorry, you showed me gated pictures, so I made the assumption. Mitch, go ahead.
This is a request for a zone change.
Okay.
It's not a site plan approval.
Okay, thank you.
But this is a relatively small project that deserves those kind of improvements to it, and that's in the public record. So that's my comments. I'm not going to develop it, but it deserves that kind of.
You have to come back to us for PAD, obvious.
For site plan approval, it goes to staff.
It goes to staff. It does not come back to us at all anymore. Okay, so I would ask staff to make sure that you reduce cut-through traffic. I'm inclined to improve this evening, but if this is not a gated community, hopefully you will make the case and convince the developer to advise us how they are going to prevent traffic from leaving the mall or that proposed private loop and cutting through that project onto 145th Avenue.
There is a chance of that.
And I think I had one other question, but I forget what it was. I'm inclined to approve this project.
Joe, we haven't heard you lately.
Appropriate.
No,
Totally appropriate.
In this apartment, the world of apartment building, are garages not commonplace?
They were. And it's all a matter of cost. But if you take it in this submarket, which would include Avondale, Goodyear, Buckeye, you look at the residents and tenants, it's purely price driven, so they'll forego that.
Because you charge extra for the...
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So-
you know, this is right behind the top-notch fitness center in the world, in the country. It's within a couple hundred yards of a mall, which will include top-drawer stores. I think having something without garages just doesn't fit within that. It's covered.
I'm not developing this property, but I was developing the other one. But here's the thing that I wanted to make on my last point was we're open to anything. Again, it was just a density issue. You know, it wasn't set in stone.
Could you still
We could do different
garages?
product type. We have garage type product. We were just doing it for the density. So.
Well, for the site plan, I personally would like to see garages. I don't know if that's atypical, but I think not having garages says something about the development, which
this is just
would be at odds with the
It does have
area.
a different attraction.
I know the price, I mean, I don't know. It's,
Well, you can always
I
do
moved into it.
You can always do a
but it-
combination.
yeah, I guess-
It
I
doesn't
guess
have to
for
be
me,
entire.
I mean, again,
many communities
it
have
just depends.
combinations, some
Yeah.
parkings, some garages, some not. You could do a combination in that.
Well, this is just for zoning, so.
I know, but
Yeah.
the question was asked, Frank, so
Yeah.
I just thought answer, okay?
Yeah.
All
We
right.
don't have to. But we don't have to.
You didn't eat dinner, did you?
I don't think any of us did.
Why do you think I'm eating all these jelly beans? I'm starving.
I got a motion and a second. Further comments?
No, let's vote. Let's go.
All right. Roll call vote. Is this,
Vice Mayor Lord,
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier.
Aye.
Councilmember Antonia.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo.
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, we'll now consider reauthorizing the 100-year Gila River water lease agreement and consider approving an additional payment to the Gila River community. Sean Bradford.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I will be as brief as possible, give you plenty of time to ask any questions. Sorry for the voice. I was on a plane at 3:30 this morning to fly back across the country. The requested actions tonight, we would like to approve the additional expenditure for this fiscal year to cover the current lease payment, and then reauthorize expenditures for the remaining lease term to cover both the principal and the interest. And I'll get into that in a minute. In May of 2003, the City Council adopted a resolution approving the settlement by CAP. That allowed to settle litigation related to repayment of capital cost for actually the infrastructure that is involved in the CAP, and then it also quantified the water rights for the Gila River Indians. And then in December of '04, the President had to sign that into law that proved federal authorization. In 2005, the Council passed two resolutions. The first was amending and restating the Gila River Indians water rights settlement, making it a public record. And then the second was to approve the water rights, which allowed the city to lease the 7,000 acre feet from the Gilas, and then also afforded the city the opportunity to lease 7,200 feet additional from CAP. In May of '06, the 100-year lease was executed by the city. The settlement was in 2005. It just took a few months to get the lease through the multiple parties that were involved. In July of '06, the council approved amendment number 1. The amendment just was necessary to correct some errors and omissions that were part of the original settlement. In March of '08, staff provided you the opportunity to approve 15 annual lease payments, which were approximately $855,000 per year, roughly $12.8 million. In April of '09, the city received its second invoice for this lease agreement. At that point, we recognized that we missed the interest component that was tied to the lease. The lease agreement called for a principal payment of about $855,000, and then there was an interest payment that was due annually every year on the outstanding balance. That was a miss by staff, and I'll take full responsibility for that. So, in summary, the original presentation that staff provided you in '05 and in '08 showed that there was an approximate cost to the city of about $12.8 million. That's the principal, that's the value of the water, 100 years. There's a lease component that was missed that would add approximately $7.5 million to the contract over the 15 years. So the 100-year lease represents about 8% of the city's total water. And if you amortize this total cost, about $21 million, over the 100 years, the cost of that water is still about $30 an acre foot, which would represent one of our lowest cost supplies. So what staff has done is we've moved some monies around. We have CIP expenditures were revised to include these increased lease payments. We had originally projected about $855,000 a year. For the next few years, it needs to be about $1.8 million. We're also preparing a plan that I'll get into in a minute that we want to bring back to you for future consideration to help bridge that gap, generate additional revenues, and pay this lease off. A few of the things we're going to do kind of concurrently is we want to negotiate potentially revised lease terms with the Gilas. The lease agreement calls for an interest component of 8.25%, and that was based off of the current market rate when this lease was authorized to be settled in 2005. We also want to look at selling some of our long-term storage credits. The city has secured, through a very aggressive recharge program, about 173,000 acre-feet of long-term storage credits. There's a few state agencies that have offered up to $128 an acre-foot for these credits. So if the city were to sell 90,000 acre-feet of its water that it currently has stored, that would be enough money to generate to pay off the lease in full, including the additional interest component for next fiscal year. One of the other strategies we want to look at is subleasing the Gila water. Surface water's got a big value to it. We can sublease our Gila water and recover that $21 million over time. We wouldn't be able to lease it for 2 years and get it all back at once, but we could sublease that water for an indefinite period of time and generate revenues to recover that debt service component. We could look at bonding the remaining principal balance, but these are things that we need time. We need to do some research. Staff is preparing those plans, working through city management, city attorney, and we'll present those to you at a later date. But this evening, we have available fund balance in this fiscal year to pay the interest component that was missed. So one of the actions that we asked for tonight was the additional appropriation of about $988,000 to pay this year's bill, and then allow staff the time to do some research and to bring back revenue opportunities for your consideration to pay off the remaining lease payments. That's the end of my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the public? Okay, could I have a motion, please?
Mr. Mayor, I move council authorize the 100-year Gila River water lease agreement and approve an additional payment to the Gila River Indian community for fiscal year 08-09 in the amount of $992,726.43.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Antoniak and a second from Councilmember Souza. It's open for discussion.
Question? Sean, the money, you say it's in the fund balance? You have money now to pay for this?
Yeah, there's additional funds available in the water resource impact fee this current fiscal year to pay that $988,000 payment.
Okay, so it's coming out of the impact fees then?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And for next year, is it in next year's budget?
It's in the CIP for next year. The expenditures are in the budget book that was provided to staff. The concern that we have is over time, there's a projected revenue shortfall Impact fees are very volatile.
Right.
Development's going to drive that. It looks like we've got coverage for next year, but we're concerned the out years that there's going to be a shortfall. So we need to bring back a strategy to generate revenues to close that gap.
The water resource fees that are going to be used to cover this, did you have to move it around? Is there any other projects going to be impacted with the water resource fee as a result of using it to pay this off?
No, the two components, the two primary components that make up the water resource fee this year in the next few years are a capital component to the CAP water that we currently have. The city has about 10,500 acre feet of CAP water. That includes a capital back charge that's take or pay, whether we use the water or not. And that's projected at about $165,000 next year. And we need to pay that every year moving forward. And then one of the strategies that we're doing in the short term is we're going to use our long-term storage credits to repay any replenishment obligation that we have for pumping groundwater. And that will save us money that we would normally pay to CAGRD that we would use those impact fees for.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Souza?
Sean, do we know how good this water is from a treatable standpoint?
Better than anything we've got.
Are we going to get to be asked for additional funds for processing?
The CAP water is water that comes from the Colorado River through the Central Arizona Project Canal System. This is just another allotment that's in that supply. As far as quality goes, it's high quality surface water. The benefit of surface water is it's replenishable every year, so there's no replenishment obligation associated with its use. So if the city were to bring that into the system and deliver it to its customers, we wouldn't have to replenish that on an annual basis like we do groundwater. There are treatment costs associated with surface water. The existing surface water that we have is of the same quality.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Yes. Now, my understanding is that we have 7,200 plus acre feet of water that's allocated to Goodyear. That's ours, as long as we pay our yearly fees into the fraternity. And then we are leasing another 7,000 acre feet from the Gila River Indian community. Is that what that is? And this is what you're asking us to do here, is that the additional 7,000 feet is what we need to make the payments on. Yeah, this 992,000.
Mayor, Councilmember Cavalier, the city has about 10,300 acre feet of a direct allocation from the CAP. And then the city has entered into a lease agreement with the Gilas for an additional 7,000 acre feet for the next 100 years.
Okay. And when are we going to wheel that down here? When do we get that? When is it?
As demand dictates, I think the short-term strategy over the next 10 years would be to recharge that, put that water into the ground, generate long-term storage credits, which would allow the city to replenish its obligations for pumped groundwater in the city of Goodyear.
And when will that be started?
The recharging?
The recharge.
We've been doing that for years.
Oh, so we've been doing it.
We've generated approximately 174,000 since 1997. And we currently use about 8,000 acre feet of water. So our current savings account, if you want to look at it that way, is over a 20-year supply.
Okay, so that's all paper water.
Correct.
It's like my wife says with our investments, it's funny money. This is funny water. Okay, that's very good. All right.
I have a question. Thank you. Mine's a little different. So back in 2005, when this deal, I guess you could say, came to the council at that time, and it was supposed to be $12 million, correct?
Correct.
Now it's $20 million. So back in 2005, when the council had accepted the $12 million buy-in or leasing, that was a good deal. Would it have been truly as good of a deal if we had truly realized that it was $20 million at that time?
In my opinion, yes. It was $20 million all along. That's the difficulty here, is that staff had the oversight and did not recognize the interest component. So in the original lease agreement, there is an interest component So the total cost of the water was almost $21 million. That's a floating number. There's a calculation that's done every year based off of the CPIU that generates what the balance, what the principal is.
Okay.
And then there's an interest component that's compounded onto that outstanding balance.
Okay.
So even at $21 million, that's about $30 an acre foot cost to the city for 100 years supply. That's by far one of our cheapest sources.
Okay, so, and that was my key concern, was it still a good deal? And really what this is just asking for approval to actually take care of the contractual agreement we have anyway. This is just the payment, correct? All right, thank you.
Sean, back to Councilmember Cavalier's point on the 7,000 from the GRIC. You said you had 10,000 coming from CAP, 10,300 acre. That includes the 7,000, doesn't it, or not?
No, we have about we have about 17,000 acre feet total.
That's an additional.
No, but it was from the Gila River community through Kyle's agreement. I thought we were getting 14,000 acre feet.
It's part of the settlement was 7,200 acre feet directly allocated to the city
And that's,
from
is
CAP.
that part of the 10? That's what I'm asking.
CAP plus the 7,000 Indian lease.
Yeah, it's this plus 7,000. Yeah, it's part of the settlement. The city originally had 2,374 acre feet. In 1996, we received another 1,007 acre feet. As part of the reallocation, we received 7,211 feet, plus the ability to lease an additional 7,000 acre feet. So the settlement was for about 14,000 acre feet to the city, 7,000 leased from the Gilas, 7,200 directly allocated to the CAP. The 7,200 we have forever, as long as we pay the capital charges.
Okay, thank you. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now consider adoption of a resolution and ordinance to amend the graffiti ordinance. Sean, you're back up.
This presentation will be even quicker. I don't have a PowerPoint. I think we're all in agreement that graffiti is an issue. What we're proposing tonight is a text amendment to the graffiti ordinance. It's going to help us expedite removal of graffiti from public and private structures. Obviously, the city believes, staff and council believes that graffiti contributes to the blight and neighborhood deterioration, and anything we can do to help rectify that issue, we want to try to look at. Some of the prohibited acts in the ordinance are going to be the applying, solicitation, abating, or abetting of graffiti. Another thing that we've added is we've added a civil code violation component to the ordinance. When a call comes in, what the city manager has asked us to do is streamline graffiti in the way the city handles it. So what we're going to be doing is the Public Works Water Resources Department is going to be the central point. All calls for graffiti are going to come into to that department. If the determination can be made very quickly that it's a public structure, the city will go out and immediately abate that graffiti. So if it's a park wall, street sign, a sidewalk, city staff are going to go out immediately and abate that. If it requires a color match, the city's going to use its contracted vendor that will provide a color match. If there's a concern about determining whether it's public or private, city staff will engage the code compliance division. They'll go out, and if it is determined it's private, cite that property. Upon receipt of that notification, the property owner will have 7 days to abate the graffiti. If the graffiti is not abated within 7 days, that will consider a violation, at which time the city can go and abate the graffiti and then seek reimbursement for the private property owner just to cover the city's costs. The city's not trying to privateer from this. It's just to cover our costs. Offenders that apply graffiti that are caught would be cited with a Class 1 misdemeanor. So this tightens up the rules. It tightens up our response. It allows the city to move very quickly. And one of the things we're going to do proactively is we're going to meet with our private utility providers in the city, like APS, some of the other utilities, and then we're going to meet with the HOAs and neighborhood associations and try to work on agreements where we can have pre-existing agreements that if a certain area with an HOA gets tagged, the city could just go out immediately using its contracted vendor and abate the graffiti instantaneously. That's essentially what we're trying to get accomplished tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you.
Comments from the public?
Public's asleep.
Ask the clerk to read the resolution by title only, please.
Adopt Resolution 09-1320, declaring as a public record that a certain document entitled Graffiti Ordinance Text Amendment dated June 22, 2009, amending Article 11, Prevention, Prohibition, and Removal of Graffiti of the City of Goodyear Graffiti Ordinance as amended, filed with the city clerk, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, could I have a motion, please?
Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 09-1320 as read by the city clerk.
Second.
A motion from Councilmember Cavalier and a second from Vice Mayor Lord. It's open for discussion.
No discussion.
Could I have a roll?
Are we going to coordinate this with the contractual arrangement that we made with an outside source to take care of graffiti within the city?
Yes, we have an outside firm under contract today that provides color matching, and the city will engage that entity, whether it's a private or a public facility that requires a color match. And the city's got those contracted services already in place and have budgeted for it in next year's fiscal budget.
So this is really an enforcing ordinance.
Yes, we're tightening up the requirements.
Yeah, Mayor Kavanaugh, Mayor, one more
Yes, sir.
item on this. I don't know if we can even do anything about this, but I'm tired of seeing in some, especially entrances to some stores, but sidewalks, where people have just thrown their gum and they've stepped on the gum. There's great big black spots in the sidewalk in a lot of places in shopping centers. Is there anything we can do? I assume that's chewing gum. Is that what that is?
I would assume so.
Well, to get rid of it, because
we can report back on that, Mr. Cavalier. It's a different issue than what we're discussing tonight.
okay, well, because we're talking about graffiti and gum label and a paint stick, and I just wondered if that would fall into that same. But if you could, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Got a quick question, Mayor?
Yes.
If graffiti, say, on a commercial building, and you cite the owner of the building, do you at that point in time some type of make sure that they've gotten it? Is it certified or whatever? Because you got a timeline of 7 days after that point in time they get cited.
Yeah, what code compliance will do is code compliance will go out and actually look at the deed to find out who the property owner is, and then send them a letter. There's a certain period of time that we have to provide to allow them to get notification. I believe that's up to 5 days, and then at that point the 7-day clock starts.
Okay, but you make sure that they actually get the notice. So if you're going to cite them, which I assume ends up in court at some point in time, correct?
It would, yes. And then the city would have the ability to go out and abate it itself, and then just seek restitution for those charges.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the roll call vote. Can I ask the clerk to read the next ordinance?
Adopt Ordinance 09-1188, amending provisions of the Goodyear City Code, Chapter 11, by replacing Article 11-1-25 pertaining to the prevention, prohibition, and removal of graffiti in its entirety, providing for separability and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the ordinance as read by the clerk.
Second motion.
A motion from Councilmember Antoniak, second from Councilmember Souza. Any comments from the public? Okay, discussion? Roll call vote?
Councilmember Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Opportunity now for anyone on council to talk a little bit about the current events.
Well, you're going to mention I'll just mention it. I had the honor along with council members to attend the 5th Annual Police Awards ceremony this past week. And in hearing these awards presented to the individual officers and the stories behind the presentation, it really demonstrated to me the dedication, the service, and the valor our officers bring in protecting our community. And I thank them for that. And then secondly, I appreciate, my appreciation goes out to the special groups of citizens who receive plaques for their contribution in assisting our police departments in various ways. Thank you.
You know, well, I was going to say, the citizen that was recognized, it was a very heartwarming story. You get a little bit and about 6 inches of a news story, and I forget the gentleman's name. Somebody, Ralph, what was his last name? Okay. You can just holler it out. Yeah, Mr. Garcia's story, the gentleman who stopped the perpetrator that was running around the street. You know, I would venture to guess, Mayor, it's along the same lines as the gentleman who pulled a individual from a burning vehicle, and probably deserves some recognition in like form, beyond even the police department's recognition that's already taken place.
That's a good idea. Let's look into that.
Yeah, it was a nice award ceremony, and you pick up a lot of stories there. And I got to say, for the vice mayor's first action representing you, Mayor, while you were out mending yourself, she did pretty well. I was proud to have Mrs. Lord as our vice mayor, and she did a great job.
She passed the test.
I do have
Coming from you, that means a lot.
Jim, I have a question. Pardon me, Mayor. I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question of a colleague, and I don't know if this is the appropriate action, but I was going to ask Mr. Cavalier maybe to report if there's been any change of circumstances regarding the Valle de Sol CDAC application, or if there's been any change of heart prior to him going to the next CDAC meeting.
On any of our CDAC, you mean the HUD money? That's coming in.
Issue you brought up at the last meeting.
Oh, that's with Visol, and they are coming to talk to us next week, I understand. They're trying to set up something. Matt will have more information on that. But they're coming in to talk to us to get our feeling about this. So we'll just wait and see. I think Joanne wants to be in on this meeting too, so it's very important that we listen to what they really had in mind. So that's coming up next week. They're just a discussion. We don't know where, they don't know. In fact, I've had another talk with Mrs. Benavides, who is the chair of the Human Relations Department in the county that handles this, and she didn't know anymore either. She says, I've given you all the information I have, and all they know at this point, they have targeted Goodyear, but it may not be Goodyear because they haven't got enough information about our neighborhoods and about our city. And so that's what they are working on now. But it's been turned over to that organization, the Valle de Sol, I hope I'm pronouncing it correct. And it is going to be, they're going to investigate and do what they have to do. And one of those things, I guess, now is to come to the city of Goodyear and speak to us. So we'll be hearing what they have to say, what they are asking, and what they had in mind, because it's really kind of, this thing has just been, we don't know what they want to do, it's this, and they have something in mind, we're going to try it. Tempe tried it, Tempe still has it, and it's just working so-so in Tempe. Tempe's not too happy with the program, so I want to make certain that if we do it, it's done right, of course. So we'll just wait and see what they have to say.
Would you like to join that meeting?
Perhaps if the option was available to do so, and I
Two
was
here,
gonna-
to be a third, that's fine.
We'll keep all the
Because you are
council.
interested in that subject.
Let me do this in the form of a report without getting in debate. I've investigated the matter myself. I spoke to Valle de Sol. I looked at the CDAC meeting notations and have talked to folks in the community, and I don't necessarily share the perspective that was shared here last week, with all due respect. And it's not a forum for debate, but I wanted to report back that I looked into it. And if Valle de Sol was not perhaps granted an opportunity at this money that I feel would be a positive impact to our community, I will ask our staff and our attorney to address how I would object to your vote at CDAC. And I'll leave it at that.
I would like to add a word into that. Actually, I am the alternate CDAC voting body, and I really saw it as a positive, and so I had asked for this meeting to occur so that we could discuss this. So I do feel the same way that you feel, Mr. Antoniak, but I would like the head vote person to feel more comfortable and to have his concerns laid to rest. So I think that we can come to that conclusion.
Yeah, I can't feel comfortable about it until we get enough information. And they don't even have the information, so we don't know where this is.
Mr. Mayor, I think we should move off of this topic at this point. If we need to discuss it further, let's schedule an agenda item.
Okay,
If they're, well, okay.
all right, and you'll have your meeting next week, right?
Well, we hope so.
Remember, Lapp,
That's what
Cavalier, and Osborne.
they
Okay,
indicated that.
Councilmember Antoniak,
I'll be
if
there,
you
not
wish
my
to-
father, as Mr. Antoniak said.
Said Mr. Cavalier, I was being polite.
Well, Mr. Cavalier is my father.
Okay, hey, we've had a good meeting. Let's finish it up in good stead here.
Frank needs to go eat dinner.
Okay, any further comments from the council? Okay, city manager, any comments?
Nothing this evening,
Any
Mr. Mayor.
inquiries of staff by
This is
council?
going to be long next
I wanted to clarify on House Bill 2135, I didn't necessarily want a big yellow paper and a whole write-up, just a brief email.
Fine.
Okay. All right, any inquiries of staff by council? Seeing none? Hey, thank you all for hanging in there with us today, and particularly the citizens. Appreciate you doing that. Meeting is adjourned.